Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto gained the bloodline of the Snow Fox original verse. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Frozen Awakening. The North. Wind cut like 1,000 invisible blades, each gust peeling away warmth with mechanical precision. Naruto's breath crystallized before his face, miniature clouds dissipating into the darkness as he pressed his body against jagged rock. 3 days of tracking through increasingly hostile terrain had led to this moment, a hidden compound nestled between towering peaks where the land of fire's jurisdiction faded into disputed territory. Blood pounded in his ears as he studied the patrol patterns below. 2 guards at the main entrance, rotating every 40 minutes. Another 3 positioned along the perimeter wall, their movements betraying professional military training rather than common mercenary habits. This wasn't the typical bandit operation Tsunade had described in the mission brief. 30 seconds, he whispered into his radio transmitter, voice barely audible above the howling wind. Static answered, followed by Shikamaru's laconic confirmation from his position on the opposite ridge. Naruto closed his eyes, centering himself. At 20, he'd grown into his potential in ways few had anticipated. Gone was the orange jumpsuit, replaced with standard issue Anbu Black's customized with subtle reinforcements at joints and pressure points. The mask strapped to his hip, a stylized fox with red accents, remained unused for now. Tonight was about intelligence gathering, not confrontation. Calculations ran through his mind. Guard rotations, entrance points, contingency plans. The familiarity of mission preparation steadied him against the unsettled feeling that had plagued him since they'd crossed the northern border. Something about this territory pulled at his senses, like a half-forgotten melody playing just beyond hearing. When his eyes opened again, decision crystallized into action. He formed hand seals with practiced efficiency, summoning 2 shadow clones that immediately dispersed toward separate observation points. The original Naruto waited precisely 17 seconds before beginning his descent down the treacherous slope, chakra concentrating in his extremities to maintain traction against ice-slicked stone. Something's wrong. Sakura's voice crackled through the comm unit. Eastern perimeter has twice the guards we counted during reconnaissance. Naruto paused mid-descent, fingers finding invisible purchase on the vertical rock face. Recent addition, or did we miss them? Recent. They're carrying different weapons, more specialized. Shikamaru's voice cut in, tension evident despite his measured tone. Abort approach. Observation only until we determine what changed. A gust of wind nearly tore Naruto's grip loose, forcing him to channel additional chakra into his fingertips. The momentary chakra spike sent an unexpected tremor through his nervous system, a brief flash of blue-white energy unlike anything he'd experienced before. Acknowledged, Naruto responded, masking his discomfort. Returning to the explosion bloomed silently at first, a sphere of orange light expanding from within the compound. The concussive wave followed milliseconds later, shattering windows and launching debris into the night sky. Naruto, Florida, TTENED himself against the cliff face as superheated air rushed upward, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of chakra-infused explosive tags, far more powerful than standard issue. Status. He barked into the comm. Already moving again, this time upward toward his original position. No response. Shikamaru. Sakura. Static hissed mockingly in his ear. Another explosion rocked the mountainside, this one detonating directly beneath Naruto's position. The cliff face distorted, fracturing along previously invisible stress lines. His chakra anchors tore free as the entire section of mountain began to collapse. Naruto's body reacted instinctively. A shadow clone materialized beside him, grabbing his jacket and hurling the original toward the nearest stable surface. The clone disappeared in the cascade of rock and snow that followed. Impact jarred through his shoulder as he collided with an outcropping 30 meters away, fingers scrabbling for purchase on ice-coated stone. For 9 heartbeats, he hung suspended over the abyss, muscles straining against gravity's insistent pull. Then the outcropping cracked, separating from the mountain with glacial deliberation. Naruto fell. The world dissolved into chaotic motion, tumbling, impacting, falling again. Snow enveloped him, first in chunks, then as an avalanche gathering momentum. Rational thought compressed into fragmented imperatives: protect head, find surface, create air pocket, asterisk. His attempt to mold chakra for another shadow clone faltered as something deep within his body rebelled, Kurama's energy surging defensive. Li against the sudden cold permeating his system. The competing chakra signatures created internal dissonance that scattered his concentration. The avalanche carried him downward for what seemed like eternity, each impact driving precious oxygen from his lungs. When motion finally ceased, Naruto found himself encased in compressed snow, lungs burning, darkness absolute. Disorientation made direction meaningless. Which way led to air? To life? Focus, asterisk, he commanded himself, suppressing panic with practiced discipline. Find a pocket, expand slowly, asterisk. His fingers twitched, encountering resistance on all sides. Compressed snow pressed against his chest with crushing force, restricting the already limited expansion of his diaphragm. Each breath became shallower than the last, carbon dioxide accumulating within the microscopic air space around his face. Minutes stretched into infinities as consciousness began to fray at the edges. The cold penetrated deeper, beyond flesh, into the core of his being. Kurama's chakra surged in desperate response, attempting to generate heat. The collision between opposing energies within his body, Kurama's fire-natured chakra and something else, Somethi, an ancient and cold awakening in his blood, created a resonance that vibrated through every cell. I'm dying, asterisk, Naruto realized with clinical detachment. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it brought clarity. As oxygen deprivation clouded his thoughts, something else crystallized within, a connection to sensations he'd experienced throughout his life but never understood. The peculiar affinity for winter missions. The way his senses sharpened in cold environments. His unusual resistance to hypothermia that had saved his team during an ice country mission the previous year. His heartbeat slowed, each contraction requiring greater effort than the last. No, asterisk, he thought with sudden ferocity. Not like this, asterisk. His hand, trapped against his chest, formed half a seal, the only movement possible within his compressed tomb. Chakra gathered, but instead of the familiar warmth of his usual techniques, a different energy answered, cool, pristine, ancient. The snow around his body began to change, molecular structures shifting from chaotic compression to organized crystalline patterns. Ice formed, but not in the solid mass that should have entombed him permanently. Instead, fracta, L structures created microscopic channels, a latticework of tiny passages through which air began to flow. Naruto gasped as oxygen reached his lungs, sweet and sharp. The relief lasted only moments. Before awareness of his situation reasserted itself. Creating breathing space had postponed death, not prevented it. His body temperature continued dropping, the conversion of snow to crystalline ice accelerating heat loss. The strange chakra pulsed again, stronger now, rushing through pathways he hadn't known existed within his body. Where it traveled, frost patterns bloomed beneath his skin, delicate. Branching structures visible through his epidermis like living tattoos. Knowledge unfurled in his mind, not as conscious thought but as instinctive understanding. His fingers moved in unfamiliar patterns, directing the alien energy outward in concentric waves. The ice surrounding him responded, hardening into structural supports in some places while remaining porous in others. A tunnel began forming, excavating upward through layers of packed snow and debris. For 23 minutes, Naruto worked in darkness, guided by instincts that felt simultaneously foreign and intimately familiar. When his hand finally broke through to open air, moonlight filtering down through the opening, exhaustion claimed him completely. Consciousness receded as the last reserves of his strange new power carved a final path to the surface. Black small square, black small square, black small square. Remarkable adaptation of cryokinetic manipulation for survival purposes. The bloodline manifests differently than historical records suggested. The clinical female voice penetrated the layers of Naruto's unconsciousness, pulling him reluctantly toward wakefulness. His eyelids remained too heavy to lift, body temperature still dangerously low despite the warmth now surrounding him. His metabolic response indicates partial integration already. Previous subjects required months to achieve comparable stability. A second voice, male, older, authoritative. The Uzumaki heritage must provide complementary pathways. Or the Jinchuriki status creates unique circumstances. The female voice again, closer now. Pulse stabilizing at 42 beats per minute. Approximately half normal human baseline but consistent with activated Yukimura bloodline carriers. Yukimura. Naruto's voice emerged as barely audible rasp. His eyes opened to blinding brightness that slowly resolved into the angular features of a woman leaning over him. Her face hovered mere inches from his own, calculating eyes the precise blue-white of glacier ice tracking his pupillary responses with clinical detachment. Conscious within 7 hours of primary manifestation, she noted, straightening. Another deviation from standard metrics. Naruto attempted to sit up, discovering that his limbs responded with alien heaviness. The room spun briefly before settling into focus. Sparse medical facility, portable equipment, tactical deployment rather than permanent installation. A field hospital, then. But unlike any Konoha configuration he recognized. Where, he began, before dissolving into a coughing fit that tore at his raw throat. The woman, early 30s, hair pulled back in a severe platinum braid, wearing a specialized medical uniform with unfamiliar insignia, pressed something cold against his neck. Relief spread instantly through his respiratory system. Specialized treatment for cryogenic trauma, she explained, noticing his questioning glance. Standard medical procedures would be counterproductive given your current physiological state. Team, Naruto managed. Throat still raw but functional. Unknown. We detected your biometric signature during routine surveillance patrols, not theirs. She made a notation on a tablet. I'm Intelligence Specialist Yuki Shimizu. You're currently in a secure medical facility approximately 20 kilometers from where we recovered you. Recovered me from what? Memory returned in fragments. The mission, the explosion, the avalanche. The strange power that had saved him. A self-created ice structure extending approximately 14 meters below the snow surface. Shimizu's expression remained professionally neutral, but something like fascination flickered behind her composed exterior. You constructed a survival chamber and ventilation system using techniques exclusive to the Yukimura bloodline. Techniques that, according to our intelligence, haven't been observed in active use for nearly 40 years. Naruto absorbed this information silently, cataloging details about his surroundings while maintaining the appearance of greater disorientation than he actually felt. 2 exits visible from his position. 3 monitoring devices tracking his vitals. The low hum of chakra dampening seals integrated into the walls, subtle but recognizable to someone who had trained with Jiraiya. Not enemies, necessarily, but definitely not allies. You mentioned Uzumaki, he said carefully. You know who I am. Naruto Uzumaki, Jonin of Konohagakure, Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Shimizu recited the information with bureaucratic precision. What we don't know is how you came to possess and activate the Yukimura bloodline, which should be genetically impossible unless. She paused, studying his features with renewed interest. Certain historical records suggest your mother traveled through northern territories approximately 9 months before your birth. The implied connection hung in the air between them. I never knew my mother, Naruto said, carefully measuring his words. If she had connections to this Yukimura clan, I wasn't informed. Few were informed of anything regarding the Yukimura after the purges. A new voice entered the conversation, the older man Naruto had heard earlier. Now stepping through the doorway. Tall and spare, with silver-streaked black hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command, he carried himself with the balanced precision of a veteran shinobi. Their abilities made them targets during the last great conflict. Most believed the bloodline extinct. Naruto watched the man's movements, assessing threat levels. Despite his age, perhaps 60, nothing in his posture suggested diminished combat capability. And you are Commander Hideo Takashi, Northern Intelligence Division. The man remained by the doorway, maintaining optimal position to observe both Naruto and the corridor beyond. We've already dispatched communication to Konoha regarding your recovery. Standard diplomatic protocols. Testing whether I know those protocols, Naruto realized. Verifying my identity, then you'll understand why I need to establish communication with my team directly, he countered, injecting appropriate authority into his voice despite his prone position. Authorization code Firebird 793, Diplomatic subsection. The subtle shift in Takashi's expression confirmed Naruto had passed the first test. No, non-Konoha shinobi would know the current month's authorization sequence. Communications remain problematic due to atmospheric conditions, Takashi replied smoothly. Once stability returns, your request will be prioritized. Lie, Naruto noted, though he maintained a neutral expression. The equipment visible in the adjacent room was more than capable of penetrating any weather-related interference. In the meantime, Shimizu interjected, we need to continue monitoring your physiological adaptation. The bloodline activation appears to have triggered significant changes in your chakra network and cellular structure. Naruto flexed his fingers experimentally, noting the strange tingling sensation that accompanied the movement. Beneath his skin, patterns of frost momentarily appeared before fading, delicate crystalline structures flowing along his circulatory pathways. What exactly is this bloodline? He asked, allowing genuine curiosity to color his tone. Building rapport remained his best option until he could accurately assess the situation. Takashi and Shimizu exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. The Yukimura were sometimes called the children of the snow fox. Shimizu finally explained, a clan with unique cryokinetic abilities, manipulation of ice and cold at the molecular level, far beyond standard water-natured chakra techniques. Air connection to winter ecosystems granted them extraordinary capabilities in northern territories. The snow fox itself was believed to be one of the greater-tailed beasts, Takashi added, studying Naruto's reaction carefully. Not one of the 9 primary Biju, but a powerful entity nonetheless. The clan's founder supposedly merged with its essence, similar to how the first Jinchuriki were created. Naruto processed this information against what he knew of Biju history from Kurama and his training with Jiraiya. I've never heard of additional tailed beasts beyond the 9. Few have. The northern territories maintain their own historical records, largely separate from the 5 great nations. Much knowledge was lost during the purges. Takashi's expression darkened momentarily. Knowledge that some would prefer remain buried. The statement carried weight beyond its surface meaning, a warning, perhaps, or an invitation to alliance. Naruto couldn't yet determine which. NTIONED changes to my cellular structure, he redirected, addressing Shimizu. What kind of changes? The intelligence specialist activated a display panel beside his bed, revealing magnified images of what appeared to be cellular activity. Your body is undergoing systematic adaptation to accommodate the bloodline's requirements. Cellular membranes are developing specialized structures for cryogenic preservation. Chakra pathways are forming secondary networks specifically calibrated for manipulating thermal energy. She indicated a time-lapse sequence showing the transformations occurring within tissue samples. Most remarkable is the rate of adaptation. Typically, bloodline awakening requires extensive acclimation periods. Your system is integrating changes approximately 5 times faster than documented cases. The Jinchuriki factor, Takashi murmured, almost to himself. Accelerated healing combined with Uzumaki vitality. Naruto focused on the cellular images, recognition ning as he identified the familiar pattern of Kurama's influence interfacing with the new structures. The fox's chakra wasn't fighting the changes, it was facilitating them, creating bridges between incompatible systems. Kurama, can you hear me? He directed the thought inward, toward the mental space where communication with the 9 tails typically occurred. No response came, though he sensed the fox's presence, dormant but stable. Your Biju appears to be in a recovery state, Shimizu noted, observing his concentration. Our sensors detect its chakra signature maintaining baseline funct ions while diverting substantial energy toward supporting your transformation. Naruto concealed his surprise at their ability to monitor his internal chakra dynamics with such precision. Standard Daikel ninjutsu couldn't achieve that level of detail, particularly with Jinchuriki systems. When can I move around? He asked, testing boundaries. I need to resume searching for my team. Your physical rehabilitation will require approximately 12 hours before mobility is recommended, Shimizu replied. However, I suspect you could manage limited movement now, despite medical advisability. Yukimura adaptations prioritize survival functionality. The assessment was accurate. Despite the heaviness in his limbs, Naruto could feel strength returning, different from his usual recovery pattern. More methodical and systematic rather than the rapid surge of Kurama's healing. "I'll leave you to rest," Takashi announced, moving toward the exit. "Specialist Shimizu will continue monitoring your progress. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the circumstances that brought you to Northern Territory without proper diplomatic clearance." The mild reprimand carried an underlying current of genuine curiosity. Whatever mission had brought Naruto here clearly intersected with Takashi's interests. As the commander disappeared through the doorway, Shimizu continued adjusting monitoring equipment, her movements precise and economical. "Your commander seems interested in my mission," Naruto observed, voice casual. "Commander Takashi has devoted decades to tracking certain activities in this region." She replied without looking up from her work. "Your presence coincides with patterns he's been documenting." "What kind of patterns?" Shimizu paused, considering her response. "Systematic extraction of individuals with specialized genetic traits. 27 disappearances over the past 14 months, all sharing certain bloodline characteristics. Like the Yukimura, among others." She met his gaze directly. "The facility you were observing before the explosion has been under surveillance for approximately 3 months. Intelligence suggested it served as a temporary processing center for abducted subjects. Naruto processed this against the mission parameters Tsunade had provided. My assignment mentioned missing persons, not genetic targeting. Perhaps your Hokage didn't possess complete intelligence." Shimizu's tone remained neutral, but the implication was clear. Information had been deliberately withheld, either from Konoha entirely or from Naruto specifically. Before he could press further, the door slid open again, admitting a young medical technician carrying specialized equipment. Shimizu directed the new arrival to update biometric baselines, effectively ending their conversation. Naruto allowed himself to sink back against the medical bed, appearing to rest while his mind processed everything he'd learned. The Yukimura clan, the Snow Fox bloodline, his mother's possible northern connections, genetic targeting operations that somehow connected to his official mission. And beneath it all, the strange new power flowing through his veins, simultaneous. Alien and intimately familiar, like remembering something he'd never actually learned. Black small square black small square black small square. 6 hours later, Naruto stood beside a frost-covered window, watching snowflakes dance through spotlight. Illuminating the compound's perimeter. His recovery had progressed with unnatural speed, even by his standards, allowing him to move about the medical suite with increasing ease. The facility, what parts he could observe from his limited vantage point, appeared to be a repurposed military installation nestled within a mountain valley. Armed personnel patrolled in patterns suggesting routine security rather than heightened alert. No identifying symbols or national insignia were visible, confirming his suspicion that this operation existed outside official jurisdictional frameworks. Your cell, Lular adaptation has stabilized at 73% integration, Shimizu announced as she entered, reviewing data on her tablet. We've never documented such rapid bloodline assimilation. Naruto turned from the window, studying her with renewed focus. Throughout the day, he'd gathered fragments of information about her through careful observation. The way other personnel deferred to her despite her relatively young age. How she accessed security systems without authorization checks. The subtle modifications to her standard equipment suggesting field experience beyond medical deployment. You're not just a medical specialist, he stated rather than asked. A hint of appreciation flickered across her features, acknowledgement of his perceptiveness. My primary function is intelligence acquisition and analysis. Medical expertise provides useful cover for field operations. And what intelligence are you acquiring from me, Specialist Shimizu? Confirmation of theoretical models are. Guarding bloodline transmission and activation. She set the tablet aside, adopting a more conversational posture. And assessment of potential alignment between your objectives and ours. Direct approach, then. Naruto could work with that. Which depends entirely on what your objectives actually are, he countered. So far, I've heard vague references to genetic targeting and historical purges. But nothing specific enough to establish common ground. Shimizu considered this, apparently weighing operational security against potential benefits of disclosure. Commander Takashi believes Song, E1 is attempting to artificially replicate or harvest bloodline abilities, specifically those with connections to entities like the Snow Fox. Someone like whoever was running that facility I was investigating. We believe that facility represented one node in a much larger network. She moved to stand beside him at the window, gaze tracking the patrolling guards below. We've been monitoring similar operations across the Northern Territories for approximately 18 months. Pattern analysis suggests systematic collection of genetic material from bloodline carriers. For what purpose? Unknown, though historical precedent offers concerning possibilities. During the Second Shinobi World War, Northern research divisions conducted experiments attempting to transfer bloodline abilities between subjects. The results were catastrophic. The clinical detachment in her voice couldn't completely mask an undercurrent of genuine revulsion. And you think someone's trying again, Naruto concluded. With potentially greater resources and more advanced methodologies. Shimizu turned to face him directly. Your mission parameters overlap significantly with our investigation. Cooperation would benefit both parties. Naruto maintained his neutral expression while internally evaluating angles and motivations. Standard protocol dictated minimal engagement with unverified entities, until proper diplomatic channels were established. But standard protocol hadn't accounted for awakening an extinct bloodline in hostile territory with his team missing and unknown parties harvesting genetic material. I need to find my team first, he stated firmly. Any cooperation depends on verifying their safety. Reasonable condition. Shimizu nodded slightly. Initial search parameters H. Avenue already been established based on your recovery location and probable dispersion patterns from the avalanche event. Commander Takashi authorized reconnaissance deployment at dawn. The concession came more easily than expected, suggesting either genuine alignment of interests or a calculated risk to gain his trust. Why the interest in my bloodline specifically? Naruto asked, redirecting the conversation. You mentioned the Yukimura were believed extinct. The Snow Fox bloodline represents a unique evolutionary adaptation to northern environments, manipulation of thermal energy at its fundamental level. Shimizu's clinical tone softened slightly, revealing genuine scientific fascination. Beyond combat applications, it offers solutions to critical survival challenges in extreme conditions. The loss of such knowledge during the purges represented incalculable cultural damage. You speak like someone with personal connection to that history. Shimizu hesitated, the first genuine crack in her professional facade. My maternal grandmother was Yukimura adjacent, not a direct bloodline carrier but connected through marriage alliances. She preserved certain historical records that would otherwise have been destroyed. The disclosure, small as it was, represented significant trust in diplomatic terms. Naruto acknowledged it with a slight nod. These changes happening to me, he said, examining the frost patterns momentarily visible beneath his skin as he channeled chakra. Are they permanent? Bloodline activation typically represents irreversible genetic expression. Shimizu studied the crystalline patterns with scientific interest. However, your unique physiological composition as both Uzumaki and Jinchuriki introduces variables outside standard parameters. The integration process appears to be creating a hybrid system rather than completely overriding existing pathways. Before Naruto could pursue this line of questioning further, alarms shattered the relative quiet. Not the shrill emergency alerts of a base under attack, but the more measured tones indicating boundary penetration. Shimizu moved immediately to a communication panel near the door, Entei. Ring an authorization sequence that activated a display screen. Surveillance footage appeared, showing multiple angles of the facility's perimeter. On the northeastern approach, 3 figures moved rough the snowfield with purposeful speed, not attempting stealth, but advancing directly toward the main entrance. Naruto recognized them instantly. That's my team. Shimizu studied the approaching figures, Shikamaru leading, Sakura flanking his right, a third Anbu operative Naruto identified as Neji maintaining rear security. Their formation suggested caution rather than hostile intent, though. All 3 moved with the controlled readiness of elite shinobi entering uncertain territory. They appear uninjured, Shimizu observed. Tracking patterns suggest they followed your biological signet. Your rather than standard search protocols. Shikamaru would have calculated probable scenarios after the avalanche, then used Neji's Byakugan to scan for chakra traces, *, Naruto realized. Their efficiency never ceased to impress him. "I need to meet them," he stated, already moving toward the door. "Their arrival under these circumstances will create unnecessary tension unless they see me directly." Shimizu didn't attempt to stop him, instead activating her communication device. "Commander, Konoha operatives approaching northeastern perimeter." Uzumaki confirms identification and requests direct contact to prevent escalation. A brief pause before Takashi's voice responded, "Granted. Security protocols remain in effect. Escort only to designated meeting area." The implied restrictions didn't surprise Naruto. Despite the veneer of cooperation, he remained under careful observation, a potentially valuable asset whose unexpected bloodline activation represented both opportunity and complication. Shimizu led him through corridors designed for defensive fallback, multiple choke points, limited visual lines, periodic security checkpoints requiring her biometric confirmation. The Fossil, Ati's design confirmed its military origins, though many sections appeared repurposed for research functions. They emerged into an antechamber connected to the facility's main entrance, a reinforced pace where incoming personnel could be processed before gaining further access. Through the monitoring screens, Naruto watched his team approach the final security checkpoint, their body language eyeing professional caution rather than hostile intent. The exterior doors slid open with pneumatic precision, admitting a swirl of snow-laden wind and 3 frost-covered figures. Shikamaru entered first, his normally languid posture replaced with the coiled readiness of a strategist in unfamiliar territory. Neji followed, Byakugan active beneath his Anbu mask, scanning for threats or deception. Sakura entered last, medical pack still secured to her back despite what must have been a difficult journey. Relief washed through Naruto at seeing them unharmed, though he controlled his expression to maintain professional composure. "Troublesome as always, Naruto," Shikamaru drawled, though the familiar complaint carried genuine relief. His sharp eyes catalogued the frost patterns visible beneath Naruto's skin. The unnatural blue-white tint to his normally vibrant eyes, the altered stance that accommodated his body's changed center of gravity. "You appear to have undergone significant physiological alterations since our separation." "Long story," Naruto replied with a hint of his usual grin. "Involving avalanches, extinct bloodlines, and apparently, my mother's family history." Neji's Byakugan focused on Naruto's chakra network, his controlled expression betraying momentary surprise. "Your chakra system has developed secondary pathways unlike anything in Hyuga medical records." "The Yukimura bloodline manifestation," Shimizu confirmed, maintaining a respectful distance from the reunited team. "A significant evolutionary adaptation believed extinct for approximately 4 decades. Sakura stepped forward, medical training overriding protocol as she conducted a swift visual assessment of Naruto's condition. "Cellular restructuring at the epidermal level," she noted, examining the frost patterns beneath his skin. "Adaptive response to extreme temperature exposure." Among other functions, Shimizu acknowledged, professional respect evident in her tone. "Your colleague's unique physiological baseline has facilitated unprecedented integration speed." The technical exchange continued briefly before Shikamaru redirected the conversation with subtle authority. "The explosion at the target facility was strategically timed to our arrival," he informed Naruto, suggesting our mission parameters were compromised before deployment. "After the avalanche separated us, we tracked your chakra signature approximately 14 kilometers from the incident location. An impressive feat given the interference patterns generated by the bloodline activation," Shimizu observed. Shikamaru's gaze shifted to her, measuring and evaluating. "You have us at a disadvantage, both in information and identification." Intelligence Specialist Yuki Shimizu, Northern Intelligence Division, she supplied smoothly. "Our operational jurisdiction encompasses investigation of genetic exploitation activities in border territories, objectives that appear to align with your mission parameters." The calculated disclosure provided necessary information while establishing professional parity, a diplomatic opening recognizing their mutual interests. "Commander Takashi has authorized FU.LL disclosure regarding our current intelligence," Shimizu continued, provided appropriate security protocols are observed. Shikamaru exchanged brief glances with his teammates, silent communication, refined through years of joint operations, before nodding acceptance. We're authorized to establish provisional cooperation pending diplomatic confirmation from Konoha. The standard response maintained in protocol while creating space for practical collaboration, exactly what Naruto would have expected from Shikamaru's tactical mind. Shimizu led them deeper into the facility, toward a secure briefing area where Commander Takashi awaited. As they walked, Sakura moved beside Naruto, voice lowered for privacy. "How are you really feeling?" she asked, medical concern underlying her professional tone. "These physiological changes appear extensive." "Different," Naruto admitted quietly. "Like I've accessed something that was always there but dormant. The cold feels right somehow." Sakura nodded, processing this against her medical knowledge. The explosion site contained residual chakra signatures unlike standard explosive formulations. Analysis suggested targeted disruption of specific genetic markers. The implication hung between them: the explosion hadn't been merely about destroying evidence or eliminating witnesses. It had been designed to trigger specific biological responses in potential bloodline carriers. They were hunting for Yukimura descendants, Naruto realized. And I activated exactly what they were looking for. The briefing room they entered featured a center-al holographic projection system displaying topographical maps of the Northern Territories. Commander Takashi stood reviewing data streams, his posture straightening almost imperceptibly as he evaluated the Konoha team with veterans' precision. "Your teammates' bloodline activation has accelerated our timetable considerably," Takashi stated without preamble, addressing Shikamaru directly. As theoretical threat assessment has become immediate strategic concern. Shikamaru's expression remained carefully neutral. "Perhaps you should elaborate on the nature of that concern before we discuss timetables." Takashi activated a sequence on the central console, bringing up surveillance footage from multiple locations, research facilities similar to the one Naruto's team had been investigating, all showing signs of recent evacuation or destruction. "Over the past 72 hours, 17 facilities connected to our primary investigation have been systematically abandoned or eliminated," Takashi explained. "Pattern analysis suggests a coordinated withdrawal response to some triggering event." "The bloodline activation," Neji concluded, Byakugan still active as he studied the tactical displays. "Precisely." Takashi expanded the central display to show a tracking matrix of energy signatures. When Uzumaki's Yukimura bloodline activated during the avalanche, it released a specific chakra resonance pattern detectable by specialized sensors. "Our systems recorded the event, but so did others." "You're suggesting someone else was monitoring specifically for this bloodline," Shikamaru stated. "Mind visibly processing strategic implications. Which means they expected the possibility of dormant carriers. The Yukimura weren't completely exterminated during the purges," Shimizu explained, bringing up historical documentation on a secondary display. "Some escaped, integrating into other populations, often concealing their heritage for protection. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, traveled through Northern Territories shortly before returning to Konoha and announcing her pregnancy." The connection landed with seismic impact. Naruto had always known so little about his mother, her Uzumaki heritage. Her role as previous Nine Tails Jinchuriki, fragments of personality shared by those who had known her. This new piece of his heritage opened questions he'd never thought to ask. "The genetic targeting operations we've been tracking demonstrate particular interest in bloodlines with Biju-adjacent characteristics," Takashi continued. "The Snow Fox bloodline represents a prime example. Cryokinetic abilities derived from communion with an ancient winter spirit. Similar to Jinchuriki creation, but through genetic inheritance rather than sealing techniques," Sakura noted. "Medical mind connecting implications. The simultaneous presence of both Nine Tails chakra and Snow Fox bloodline in a single viable host represents unprecedented potential," Shimizu added, glancing at Naruto. "A combination that certain parties have apparently been attempting to artificially recreate through their experiments. And now they know it exists naturally," Shikamaru concluded grimly. "Not just exists. They know precisely who carries it." Takashi manipulated the display to show energy dispersion patterns radiating from Naruto's avalanche location. The activation signature was distinctive enough to identify both bloodline type and carrier identity to anyone with appropriate sensor technology. The tactical implications crystallized in Naruto's mind with uncomfortable clarity. "They'll come after me directly now. Not just you, Takashi corrected. Your activation will accelerate their timeline for all targets. Whatever endgame they're working toward, your Bloodline manifestation represents either catalyst or final component. Shikamaru's expression hardened with decision. We need to report these developments to Konoha immediately and request reinforcement. Already arranged, Takashi replied. Surprising them. A secure communication channel has been established with your Hokage. She's awaiting your team's status confirmation before deploying additional resources. The cooperation exceeded standard protocol, suggesting Takashi's concerns extended beyond territorial jurisdiction to broader security implications. Before we proceed further, the commander continued, fixing Naruto with a penetrating stare, there's something you should see. He entered a complex authorization sequence into the main console, unlocking a protected data archive. His central display shifted to historical footage, preserved despite its age and grainy quality, timestamp indicating recording approximately 35 years earlier. The image showed a battlefield unlike any Naruto had seen in modern conflict. Snow-covered terrain stretched toward distant mountains, the landscape transformed by what appeared to be massive ice structures, some naturally formed, hers clearly shaped by human intervention. In the center of the frame, a single figure stood facing what appeared to be dozens of opponents. As the camera zoomed closer, details became visible, a woman with striking red hair. Features reminiscent of Kushina but older, more weathered. Around her, the air itself seemed to crystallize, forming intricate patterns that expanded outward with deadly precision. Kaide Yukimura, Takashi identified, last recorded master of the Snow Fox bloodline. This footage was captured during the Northern Purges, shortly before her presumed death. Naruto watched transfixed as the woman, his relative, somehow moved through forms unlike any jutsu he'd studied. Each gesture manipulated ice and cold not as external elements but as extensions of her own being. The attacking forces, despite superior numbers, struggled against the absolute mastery of environment she commanded. The Yukimura didn't just control ice, Shimizu explained quietly. They embodied winter itself, its preservative power, its cleansing force, its patient strength. As if responding to her words, the figure in the recording made a final, decisive movement, arms extending outward before drawing inward toward her center. The battlefield responded with impossible synchronicity, temperature dropping so rapidly that attacking forces simply stopped, preserved in perfect crystalline stasis. The recording ended abruptly, final frame capturing Kaide Yukimura looking directly toward the camera, eyes glowing with the same blue-white luminescence Naruto had glimpsed in his own reflection. Silence held the briefing room for several heartbeats before Takashi spoke again. After this battle, Kaide disappeared. Intelligence suggested she was mortally wounded but escaped with a small group of clan survivors. All traces vanished until approximately 7 months later, when Kushina Uzumaki returned to Konoha from an undisclosed northern mission. The implication hung in the air, unspoken but unmistakable. You believe this woman was my grandmother, Naruto stated, voice steady despite the emotional impact of the revelation. The genetic markers are consistent with that hypothesis, Shimizu confirmed. Though absolute verification would require additional testing. What matters now, Takashi redirected, is that whoever is behind the genetic targeting operations will have reached the same conclusion. Your bloodline activation doesn't just make you a target, it makes you the target. Shikamaru's tactical mind immediately processed the strategic implications, which creates both vulnerability and opportunity. Takashi nodded with grim approval. Precisely. If we can control how they come for Uzumaki, we control the field of engagement. You're suggesting using me as bait, Naruto concluded. Neither surprised nor particularly concerned by the proposal. It wouldn't be the first time he'd served as strategic lure for more dangerous opponents. With significant protective parameters, Shimizu qualified. Displaying a preliminary operational schematic. Your bloodline abilities provide defensive capabilities beyond standard shinobi techniques, particularly in northern environments. The tactical discussion continued, Shikamaru and Neji engaging with Takashi on deployment strategies while Sakura consulted with Shimizu regarding medical contingencies. Naruto listened, contributing where appropriate, but part of his attention remained fixed on the final image of Kaide Yukimura, this unknown grandmother whose legacy now flowed through his veins. The Frost P. Turns beneath his skin pulsed in response to his focus, spreading further along his forearms before receding. With each pulse came greater familiarity, instinctive understanding of capabilities he'd never been taught but somehow recognized at cellular level. The Snow Fox bloodline, asterisk he thought, examining the crystalline structures manifesting between his fingers as he channeled chakra. My bloodline, asterisk, whatever came next. Pursuit by unknown enemies, confrontation with those harvesting bloodline abilities, discovery of his maternal heritage, Naruto recognized the emergence of something transformative. The power flowing through him wasn't just another technique to master or weapon to wield. It was connection to history he'd never known, family he'd never met, potential he'd never imagined. As the strategic planning continued around him, snow fell beyond the facility windows, blanketing the northern landscape in pristine white. For the first time in his life, Naruto felt the snowfall not as external phenomenon but as distant kindred, part of the same fundamental force now awakening within his blood. Black small square, black small square, black small square. Miles away, in a laboratory carved deep beneath northern mountains, a man's street. Ood watching multiple monitoring screens with methodical attention. Environmental data, chakra resonance patterns, thermal imaging, all converging on a single conclusion. After all these years, he murmured, voice carrying the hushed reverence of scientific breakthrough. A perfect hybridization. His fingers traced the energy signature displayed on the central screen, the unmistakable pattern of Snow Fox bloodline activation. But amplified and transformed by its interaction with the Nine Tails chakra. Prepare Extraction Team Alpha, he instructed the white-coated technician beside him. Priority 1 Acquisition Protocol, sir. The technician hesitated. The subject's location indicates Northern Intelligence Division involvement. Standard extraction may be compromised. The man, Orochi Yukishiro, turned from the displays. Cold amber eyes regarding his subordinate with detached amusement. Standard protocols were rendered obsolete the moment the bloodline activated. This changes everything. He returned his attention to the monitoring screens, where satellite imagery tracked the facility housing Naruto Uzumaki. Decades of research, countless failed experiments, the systematic collection and analysis of bloodline samples, all culminating in this unexpected development. Sometimes, Orochi mused, nature accomplishes what science can only imitate. The Uzumaki-Yukimura hybridization represents the perfect symbiosis of opposing forces. His hand passed over a specialized scanner, frost patterns briefly visible beneath his skin, similar to those manifesting on Naruto, but artificial. Grafted rather than inherited. Begin the Yuki no Kitsune protocol, he commanded. All other projects are suspended. As subordinates rushed to comply with his directives, Orochi remained watching the distant facility. Anticipation building like the pressure front before a killing blizzard. After generations of searching, the bloodline had returned, not diluted by crossbreeding or compromised by time, but strengthened through its union with the Nine Tails. Welcome home, nephew, he whispered to the distant image. The Snow Fox has waited long enough. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Fractured Reflections. Konoha's familiar gates emerged through early morning mist, timber sentinels standing guard over the hidden village that had weathered wars, invasions, and catastrophes throughout its tumultuous history. Naruto regarded his home with newfound perspective after 8 days in Northern Territory. The temperate climate that had once felt perfectly comfortable now registered as uncomfortably warm against his altered physiology. Your body temperature is holding at 29 degrees Celsius, Sakura noted, monitoring the specialized medical tracker Shimizu had provided before their departure. Still well below normal human baseline, but stable. Naruto nodded, adjusting the modified uniform designed to regulate his new thermal requirements. The lightweight material incorporated specialized sealing techniques that channeled excess heat away from his body, necessary accommodation until he mastered conscious control over his altered metabolism. Seems counterintuitive, Shikamaru observed, hands tucked into pockets as they approached the village checkpoint. Fire country housing someone who literally embodies winter. Elemental irony, Naruto replied with a LF smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. 3 days had passed since his last meaningful communication with Kurama. The fox's consciousness retreated into dormancy as the Snow Fox bloodline continued restructuring their shared internal landscape. The silence within his mind felt disorienting after years of constant, if often antagonistic, companionship. Tsunade has arranged direct entry protocols. Neji informed them as they reached the gate, where two Anbu operatives stood waiting rather than the usual Chunin guards. Medical isolation procedures will be observed until your condition is fully assessed. The careful phrasing didn't mask the underlying reality. Naruto represented both medical mystery and potential security concern until his transformation stabilized. The diplomatic negotiation between Konoha and the Northern Intelligence Division had established information-sharing parameters, but underlying tensions remained, competing interests circling the unprecedented development. Of dual-nature chakra systems within a Jinchuriki host. The Anbu escorts led them through secondary passages rather than main village thoroughfares, avoiding civilian observation while maintaining efficient progress toward the Hokage Tower. Naruto sensed the subtle chakra barriers activating as they passed, containment protocols designed to prevent energy signatures from dispersing beyond controlled parameters. They're treating me like a potential contagion, he realized, though he understood the precaution. His own chakra emissions had become erratic during their journey home, crystalline formations occasionally manifesting in surrounding air without conscious direction. The Hokage awaited them in a specialized medical chamber within Anbu headquarters rather than her usual office, Anyo. Fair indication of security protocols in effect. Tsunade's expression remained professionally neutral as they entered, though Naruto detected the momentary widening of her eyes as she registered the physical manifestations of his transformation. Report, she directed, addressing Shikamaru while medical personnel established monitoring stations around the chamber's perimeter. Preliminary finding. GS confirmed by subsequent investigation, Shikamaru responded, falling easily into formal briefing cadence. Target facility was engaged in genetic extraction operations focused on bloodline abilities. Our arrival triggered predetermined contingency protocols resulting in facility destruction and forced separation of our team. Tsunade nodded, attention shifting to the medical readings now displaying on wall-mounted screens. And the bloodline activation appears consistent with historical records of the Yukimura clan's Snow Fox lineage. Sakura supplied, transferring data from her portable medical unit to the central system. Integration continues at unprecedented rates, currently estimated at 78% completion. And the Nine Tails? The question hung momentarily in the sterile air. Naruto answered directly, meeting Tsunade's evaluating gaze. Dormant but present, the bloodline integration seems to have triggered some kind of reorganization of our shared internal space. He gestured vaguely toward his midsection where the seal remained visible but altered, crystalline patterns having formed around its perimeter like frost on a window. Kurama's consciousness is still there, but not currently responsive. Tsunade absorbed this information with the focused calculation of both medical professional and village leader weighing potential implications. The Northern Intelligence Division's assessment. Their researchers hypothesized that the Nine Tails chakra is facilitating bloodline integration rather than resisting it, Sakura explained. Creating adaptive pathways between incompatible systems. Specialist Shimizu provided extensive technical documentation, Shikamaru added, producing a sealed scroll bearing diplomatic markers, including historical context regarding the Yukimura clan and their connection to Uzumaki lineage. Tsunade accepted the scroll, breaking the security seal with practiced precision. And their theory regarding Kushina's northern activities. Circumstantially sound but unconfirmed, Shikamaru replied carefully. Timeline alignment suggests Kushina Uzumaki may have encountered surviving Yukimura clan members during her northern deployment. Approximately 9 months before Naruto's birth. Commander Takashi believes my mother may have been directly related to Kaide Yukimura, Naruto interjected, unwilling to be discussed as though absent. The last recorded Snow Fox master. Tsunade's gaze sharpened. Kaide survived the purges, then. The statement rather than question confirmed Naruto's suspicion at Konoha, or at least its leadership, possessed more information about northern clan histories than had been shared with him. You knew about the Yukimura, he said, keeping his tone neutral despite the realization. Historical awareness only, Tsunade clarified, setting the scroll aside. The northern bloodlines were largely considered extinct after the purges. Any connection to your mother would have been speculative at best. Naruto sensed the careful parsing of information, truth without complete disclosure. Before he could press further, one of the medical monitors emitted a shrill alert. As frost patterns suddenly manifested across his exposed skin, responding to his emotional state. Chakra spike, a medical nin reported, adjusting equipment settings. Localized temperature drop of 12 degrees within 1 meter radius. Quote, Tsunade observed the reaction with clinical interest. Your control mechanisms need significant refinement before you can resume normal duties. I need to understand what I'm controlling first. Naruto countered, consciously regulating his breathing to stabilize the fluctuation. The frost patterns receded gradually, though a faint mist continued to form with each exhalation. Commander Takashi provided technical briefings, but practical application requires specialized training. Which presents our first significant challenge, Tsunade acknowledged. No living instructors exist with direct experience in Snow Fox techniques. The Northern Intelligence Division offered training resources, Shikamaru noted. Though such arrangements would carry diplomatic complications and security concerns, Tsunade added pointedly. Specialist Shimizu's medical competence notwithstanding, their interest in Naruto's condition extends beyond scientific curiosity. The assessment matched Naruto's own impressions. While Takashi and Shimizu had provided valuable assistance, their ultimate objectives remained carefully obscured: professional cooperation, masking deeper agendas connected to the Yukimura legacy. There's also the matter of Orochi Yukishiro, Neji contributed, having remained characteristically silent throughout the initial exchange. Quote, Northern Intelligence identified him as the probable architect behind the genetic targeting operations. Tsunade's expression darkened at the name. Yukishiro's involvement complicates matters considerably. You know him? Naruto asked, surprised by her evident familiarity. By reputation and historical record. Tsunade activated a secure archive on the central display, bringing up a personnel file bearing classification markings dating back nearly 30 years. Orochi Yukishiro was once considered among the foremost medical researchers specializing in bloodline genetics. His work during the Third Shinobi War explored methods for preserving and potentially transferring Kekkei Genkei abilities between compatible subjects. The display showed a younger version of the man Takashi had identified from surveillance footage. Sharp features, calculating amber eyes, the poised precision of someone accustomed to methodical dissection of problems. His research crossed ethical boundaries established by international medical conventions, Tsunade continued, clinical detachment masking evident distaste, particularly regarding experimentation protocols and subject consent. After the war, evidence emerged connecting him to unauthorized procedures involving captured bloodline carriers, including Yukimura clan members, Shikamaru inferred. Likely, though records from that period remain incomplete due to northern jurisdictional autonomy. Tsunade scrolled through additional documentation. Yukishiro disappeared approximately 25 years ago when his research facility was scheduled for inspection by international medical authorities. And now he's systematically harvesting bloodline carriers, Naruto concluded, frost patterns briefly manifesting along his forearms before his conscious control reasserted itself. Using techniques he's refined over decades. With apparent focus on your newly activated abilities, Tsunade confirmed. The timing of his operational acceleration suggests the Snow Fox bloodline represents either catalyst or culmination of his research objectives. The clinical assessment couldn't disguise the underlying significance. Naruto had Beck's own primary target for an opponent whose methodical patience had sustained covert operations spanning decades. Containment protocols will remain in effect until your condition stabilizes, Tsunade decided. Medic's pragmatism overriding personal considerations. Specialized training parameters will be established under controlled conditions, focusing on chakra regulation and environmental impact management. And Orochi? Naruto questioned. Intelligence operations are being coordinated with northern authorities and our own Anbu division. Tsunade's tone indicated that particular discussion had reached its conclusion. Your priority remains mastering your altered physiology before field deployment can be considered. The directive carried both professional logic and personal concern beneath its authoritarian delivery. Naruto recognized the wisdom in stabilizing his abilities before confronting external threats, though restraint had never aligned with his natural inclinations. I'll L needs space for practical application testing, he negotiated. The standard training facilities won't accommodate the environmental effects. Arrangements have been made, Tsunade confirmed. ASP. ECI leased containment area has been established in the northeast quadrant, incorporating sufficient isolation parameters while allowing necessary movement range. The preparation indicated she had anticipated both his condition and his response, unsurprising given their years of professional interaction. Whatever personal concerns she harbored remained subordinated to pragmatic problem-solving. A leadership approach Naruto had come to respect despite occasional frustration with its constraints. Dismissed for medical observation, Tsunade concluded, shifting attention to the monitoring equipment. As additional specialists entered the chamber. Comprehensive assessment protocols will establish functional baselines before training parameters can be finalized. As the team dispersed to their respective debriefings, Naruto submitted to the battery of medical examinations with uncharacteristic patience. The sooner baseline parameters were established, the sooner he could begin adapting to his new reality, whatever that might ultimately entail. Black small square black small square black small square. 3 days later, Naruto stood in the center of a specialized training chamber, surrounded by devastation entirely of his own creation. ICE formations jutted from walls and floor like crystalline stalagmites, their patterns revealing the chaotic energy dispersal that had generated them. Frost covered every surface within a 12-meter radius, thickening near the center where he had attempted to channel concentrated chakra through unfamiliar pathways. Well, Kakashi observed from the observation platform above, visible breath condensing in the chamber's frigid air. That was certainly impressive. The deliberate understatement drew a frustrated sigh from Naruto as he surveyed the results of his latest attempt at controlled manifestation. Impressive but useless. I'm generating plenty of ice but with minimal directional control. Most Kekkei Genkai require years of specialized training to master, Yamato reminded him. From his position near the reinforced doorway, his wood release abilities had proven essential for rapidly repairing structural damage during Naruto's more explosive training attempts. Your attempting to compress that timeline into days. Logical assessment did little to alleviate Naruto's growing frustration. 3 days of intensive training had produced spectacular effects but minimal practical applications. His chakra responded to emotional states more readily than conscious direction, resulting in impressive but largely uncontrolled manifestations. The Yukimura scrolls Shimizu Pravi. Dead mentioned something called resonant attunement, he said, brushing crystalline fragments from his specialized training gear. Connecting internal energy patterns to external thermal conditions. Your natural learning style has always favored practical application over theoretical study, Kakashi noted, descending from the observation platform with characteristic grace. Perhaps a more dynamic training environment would yield better results than controlled isolation. Yamato's expression suggested immediate concern with this proposal. Tsunade's containment directive specifically restricts training to secured facilities until control parameters are established. The directive addresses village safety considerations, Kakashi countered, visible eye crinkling with familiar mischief. But proper training sometimes requires appropriate environmental context. Naruto recognized the oblique suggestion in Kakashi's careful phrasing. You're proposing a field training deployment. A limited scope reconnaissance mission to the northern border region, Kakashi clarified, producing a mission scroll bearing official markings. Authorized by the Hokage approximately 40 minutes ago. Following review of your latest stability assessments. Yamato's surprise mirrored Naruto's own. The medical division cleared this. With specific operational parameters and continuous monitoring requirements, Kakashi confirmed. Unsealing the scroll to reveal mission specifications. Border incidents near Last Snow Pass have increased over the past 72 hours. Intelligence suggests connection to Orochi's operations contracting through local bandit networks. The information coalesced into clear strategic purpose. Controlled field testing of Naruto's abilities while investigating potential Orochi connections. Tsunade's pragmatism at work again, addressing multiple objectives through single deployment. Departure in 2 hours, Kakashi continued, resealing the scroll. 4-person team configuration. You, myself, Yamato, and Hinata Hyuga for reconnaissance support. Naruto nodded, already mentally cataloging equipment requirements. The specialized climate gear would need modifications based on his recent training outcomes. Duration parameters: 3 days maximum, with contingency protocols for condition deterioration or significant intelligence developments. CAC. Ashi's casual tone belied the careful consideration evident in the mission structure. Think of it as a graduated training exercise with practical application components. Despite the controlled parameters, the opportunity for field deployment represented significant progress from isolation protocols. Whether Tsunade's authorization stemmed from confidence in his stabilization or necessity overriding caution remained unclear. Though Naruto suspected strategic considerations outweighed medical consensus. 2 hours, he confirmed, already moving toward the chamber exit where support personnel waited to document the latest training outcomes. Whatever combination of factors had influenced the deployment decision, the opportunity to test his abilities in natural environmental context might provide the breakthrough that controlled conditions had failed to produce. Black small square, black small square, black small square. Last snow pass carved a narrow route through northern mountains, its ancient stone surfaces polished by centuries of seasonal travel between Fire Country's temperate lowlands and the frigid territories beyond. Strategic significance had warranted periodic patrol rotations throughout Konoha's history, though recent diplomatic realignments had reduced regular military presence to minimal observation units. Naruto crouched atop a wind-carved promontory overlooking the pass's southern approach, enhanced senses regis. Tearing environmental details with unprecedented clarity. The cold air carried information his previous physiology would have missed entirely, subtle differences in temperature indicating recent human movement. Crystalline structures in snowdrifts recording passage patterns, air currents mapping invisible thermal topography throughout the valley below. 3 distinct groups passed through within the last 36 hours. He reported through the specialized communication device secured to his collar. The modified equipment incorporated thermal insulation to prevent malfunction from the cold emanating from his body. Largest contingent approximately 20 individuals with supply configuration consistent with extended deployment rather than simple passage. Visual confirmation from Eastern Ridge, Hinata's voice replied. Byakugan extending her observation range well beyond normal parameters. Encampment established in sheltered basin approximately 4 kilometers north of Pass Junction. Chakra signatures suggest shinobi training, though equipment patterns match regional bandit configurations. Mercenaries with specialized reinforcement, Kakashi concluded, voice carrying the foe. CUSED calculation of tactical assessment. Consistent with intelligence regarding Orochi's operational methodology. Naruto absorbed this information while studying the valley's thermal patterns. His enhanced perception registered temperature variations as visible color gradients, warmer areas manifesting as muted amber against the dominant blues and violets of the winter landscape. The encampment, Hinata identified, appeared as concentrated heat signature within the natural thermal topography. They've established systematic patrol rotations, Hinata continued, Byakugan tracking movement patterns. Professional security protocols exceeding standard bandit operations. Infiltration pathway along western approach would avoid primary observation points, Yamato suggested, voice slightly distorted by wind interference at his more distant position. Unnecessary, Naruto responded, decision crystallizing as environmental assessment aligned with tactical opportunity. I can approach directly using thermal camouflage. Brief silence greeted this proposal, understandable given the experimental nature of the technique he referenced. Throughout their journey northward, Naruto had discovered his ability to align his body's thermal signature with surrounding environmental conditions, effectively disappearing against natural temperature gradients. Untested application in hostile territory, Kakashi noted, neither approving nor rejecting outright, which makes it the perfect field assessment opportunity, Naruto countered, already making necessary mental adjustments to initiate the technique. Hinata can monitor my chakra signature throughout approach. Any destabilization would be immediately apparent. Another brief silence before Kakashi's response, approved with continuous status verification. Observation only. No engagement without team coordination. Naruto acknowledged the parameters while focusing internal awareness on the specialized chakra pathways that had developed throughout his transformation. The technique required precise modulation of his body's thermal emission patterns, not suppression but calibration, adjusting output to match environmental baseline. Frost patterns manifested beneath his skin as he initiated the process, chakra flowing through specialized channels that interfaced with external temperature conditions. The sensation resembled a scion in perfectly matched water, boundaries between internal and external thermal states blurring until distinction dissolved. Thermal signature harmonizing with background radiation, Hinata confirmed. Byakugan tracking the transformation with scientific precision. Visual detection would require direct physical observation rather than chakra or heat sensing. Naruto's consciousness expanded to environmental awareness unlike anything he'd previously experienced. The mountain landscape resolved into complex thermal architecture, currents, gradients, interaction patterns between elements forming intricate systems invisible to normal perception. Moving within this newfound awareness required recalibration of basic physical principles. Each shift of weight altered local thermal dynamics, requiring continuous adjustment to maintain camouflage integrity. Naruto descended from the promontory with measured precision, body responding to environmental feedback with increasing fluidity as muscle memory adapted to the technique's requirements. The journey across exposed terrain toward the encampment became meditation in motion, conscious awareness simultaneously focused inward on maintaining technique integrity and outward on environmental navigation. Snow yielded beneath his footsteps without disturbing surface patterns, body temperature adjusting dynamically to prevent tail melting that might betray his passage. Approaching outer patrol perimeter, Hinata updated through the communication link, voice pitched to minimal audibility. 2 sentries positioned at 50-meter intervals. Basic chakra sensitivity but no specialized detection equipment. Naruto acknowledged without verbal response, adjusting his approach vector to maintain optimal distance from the patrol route. The encampment gradually revealed itself beyond a natural ridge, temporary structures arranged in military-precise configuration rather than the haphazard clustering typical of standard bandit operations. Central command tent showing significant chakra shielding, Hinata reported as Naruto established observation position behind natural snow formations. Unable to penetrate for internal assessment. Confirmed specialized operation, Kakashi concluded. Equipment and personnel deployment patterns match intelligence profile for Orochi's contracted units. Naruto studied the encampment's thermal signature, noting the systematic organization that betrayed professional military influence rather than common criminal enterprise. Personnel movements followed disciplined patterns. Security measures incorporated chakra sensing perimeters, supply distribution suggested extended operational timeline rather than temporary raiding base. They're establishing forward deployment position rather than simple transit operation, he observed, recognizing tactical configuration from Anbu field manuals. Preparation for larger movement through the pass. Assessment matches intelligence projection models. Kakashi confirmed. Orochi appears to be repositioning resources following northern facility evacuations. The strategic implications coalesced in Naruto's tactical awareness. Last Snow Pass represented critical transit route between northern territories and Fire Country's interior regions. Controlling this choke point would facilitate covert movement of personnel and RCES while limiting potential interdiction options. South perimeter showing increased activity, Hinata suddenly reported, voice sharpening with alert focus. New arrivals approaching from Lower Valley. 3 individuals moving at high speed. Chakra signatures suggest combat specialized configuration. Naruto adjusted position to observe the approaching figures, 2 male, 1 female based on movement patterns. All maintaining pace that indicated shinobi-level physical conditioning. Their direct approach toward the encampment suggested affiliation rather than opposition. Mercenary reinforcement, Kakashi hypothesized. Maintain observation position and his instruction halted abruptly as the situation transformed without warning. The female figure leading the approaching group suddenly altered trajectory, spinning to engage her companions with explosive violence. Fire erupted around her form as she launched simultaneous attacks against both men, the conflagration illuminating the alley in stark orange contrast against winter twilight. Engagement initiated between approaching units, Hinata reported, professional comm masking evident surprise. Lead individual displaying ADVA, NCED fire nature manipulation capabilities. Naruto observed the combat with focused assessment, thermal perception revealing details invisible to standard vision. The woman's chakra signature burned with extraordinary intensity, core temperature exceeding normal human parameters by significant margin. Her attacks demonstrated refined fire nature manipulation beyond standard military application, not simply generating flames but controlling combustion dynamics with precise modulation. Her companions responded with coordinated counterattacks, one employing earth nature techniques to create DEFA NSIVE barriers while the other launched water-based projectiles to suppress her flames. Their tactical coordination suggested prior combat experience together, though they now found themselves defending against their former ally. Defection scenario or pre-existing infiltration operation, Kakashi assessed, voice carrying the focused calculation of veteran combat analyst. The female fighter carved through her opponents' defenses with methodical precision, fire techniques not merely overwhelming through raw power but strategically nullifying specific defensive configurations. When one opponent attempted earth wall protection, her flames consumed oxygen surrounding the structure, creating vacuum effect that collapsed the barrier. When water techniques threatened to extinguish her attacks, she adjusted combustion properties to generate temperatures that flash vaporized the incoming projectiles. Her fire manipulation exhibits technical refinement consistent with specialized bloodline PP location rather than standard chakra techniques, Yamato observed. Naruto's thermal perception confirmed this assessment. The woman's internal chakra pathways displayed unique configuration optimize. D for thermal energy manipulation similar to his own specialized adaptations for cold energy systems. The combat reached decisive phase as she maneuvered her opponents into compromised tactical position, using terrain features to restrict their movement options while maintaining her superior mobility. The finishing sequence executed with mathematical precision, primary opponent disabled with caught rising strike to major locomotion muscles, secondary target incapacitated through oxygen deprivation technique that rendered him unconscious without permanent damage. With both opponents neutralized, she immediately redirected attention toward the encampment, which had initiated alert protocols in response to the nearby combat. Sentries established defensive perimeter while internal units mobilized for potential engagement. She's significantly outnumbered with no apparent reinforcement, Hinata noted, Byakugan tracking both the lone fighter and encampment response. Tactical withdrawal will be standard procedure in this scenario. Instead, the woman advanced directly toward the encampment, flames still wreathing her form in defiant announcement of hostile intent. The tactical oration ality suggested either supreme confidence or desperation overriding strategic consideration, neither promising survival against the organized force mobilizing to meet her approach. Decision crystallize in Naruto's mind with characteristic clarity. Whatever complex factors had generated this scenario, allowing a single combatant to face overwhelming opposition without intervention violated both tactical pragmatism and personal principles. Engaging secondary observation position, he reported, already moving from his concealed location toward intercept trajectory. The carefully neutral Frosty communicated intention while technically maintaining mission parameters, observation from different vantage point rather than direct engagement. Kakashi's resigned sigh carried clearly through the communication link. Maintain operational security protocols. Support positioning only unless direct intervention becomes unavoidable. Naruto acknowledged the parameters while calculating optimal approach vector. The woman had advanced to within 200 meters of the encampment perimeter, her determined pace suggesting attack strategy already formulated despite obvious numerical disadvantage. His thermal camouflage technique maintained integrity as he moved to parallel position along her approach line, close enough for potential support while remaining undetectable to standard observation methods. Enhanced perception registered additional details about her combat readiness, specialized chakra channeling mechanisms incorporated into lightweight armor, physical conditioning suggesting professional military background. Movement patterns revealing systematic combat training rather than improvisational fighting style. The encampment completed defensive mobilization as she approached final engagement range. 27 combatants established tiered defense configuration with chakra users positioned for overlapping coverage. Standard tactical response for professional military uni. T facing single opponent. Excessive force deployment ensuring rapid neutralization. She halted precisely 70 meters from their position, optimal range for area effect techniques against grouped opponents. Her hands formed specialized seals Naruto didn't recognize, chakra gathering with focused intensity that registered as brilliant incandescence in his thermal perception. Preparing high-level fire technique, Hinata warned. Chakra concentration exceeding standard combat parameters. Before either the woman or encampment forces could initiate primary engagement, new variables transformed the tactical landscape. 3 specialized chakra signatures manifested at the encampment's northern perimeter, distinct from regular personnel, their sudden appearance suggesting space-time transport. Chion technique rather than physical approach. New entities entering operational theater, Kakashi reported, voice sharpening with increased alert status. Chakra profiles match intelligence records for Orochi's specialized combat units. Naruto's enhanced perception registered the new arrivals with immediate tactical concern. Unlike the encampment's regular forces, these individuals exhibited Chakra signatures suggesting extensive modification, artificial enhancement through medical intervention rather than natural development. Their movement as they joined the defensive formation displayed mechanical precision that contrasted with the more natural fluidity of standard human locomotion. The woman faltered momentarily, clearly recognizing the significance of these reinforcements. Her body language revealed brief but critical hesitation, tactical reassessment acknowledging altered combat parameters that had shifted from challenging to potentially unsurvivable. Despite this recognition, she resumed attack preparation. Chakra concentration intensifying as she committed to engagement regardless of diminished survival probability. The decision displayed either remarkable courage or concerning disregard for tactical reality, perhaps both simultaneously. The modified combat units moved to forward positions, their coordinated deployment suggesting specialized countermeasures prepared specifically for fire nature opponents. The tactical reconfiguration would create overwhelming advantage once engagement initiated. Naruto's decision formed with characteristic clarity. Direct intervention had become tactically justified through introduction of specialized combat units exceeding mission intelligence parameters. The unexpected development created legitimate investigative opportunity while addressing immediate humanitarian concerns. His thermal camouflage dissolved as he redirected chakra flow through specialized pathways, frost patterns manifesting across visible skin surface. As temperature plummeted in concentric circles radiating outward from his position. The sudden environmental shift registered immediately with both the encampment forces and the lone fire wielder. Combat preparations temporarily suspended as all parties processed the unexpected development. So much for observation only, Kakashi's resigned voice noted through the communication link. Naruto ignored the mild rebuke as he completed his approach, positioning himself between the woman and encampment forces with calculated precision. The frost emanating from his form created visible demarcatio line across the snow-covered ground, physical manifestation of intervention boundary. This engagement is suspended, he announced, voice carrying appropriate authority despite his technical lack of jurisdiction in this scenario. The specialized units would recognize his identity immediately. Orochi's intelligence network would have prioritized information regarding the Snow Fox bloodline activation. The encampment commander, distinguished by centralized position and command insignia, evaluated the new development with professional calculation. Konoha has no authority in this territory, Uzumaki. This is internal security matter. Then you won't mind explaining why Orochi Yukishiro's specialized combat units are operating under your command, Naruto countered, frost patterns intensifying around his hands as he maintained combat readiness without initiating aggressive action. Since when do border bandits employ medically modified operatives with spatial transportation capabilities? The reference to Orochi generated visible tension among standard encampment personnel, suggesting limited awareness of their true operational affiliation. The specialized units themselves remained unnervingly motionless, awaiting specific command protocols rather than responding to tactical developments. Behind him, the woman maintained her combat stance, though Naruto sensed her chakra concentration recalibrating in response to his intervention. You're interfering with legitimate security operations against a known terrorist, the commander asserted, though uncertainty had entered his tone. The introduction of variables outside expected parameters had created command hesitation, opportunity Naruto immediately exploited. Your personnel transport illegal research materials through restricted territory while employing forbidden modification techniques on combat units, he responded, confidence stemming from logical deduction rather than confirmed intelligence. The tactical configura, Qian and specialized units supported no other reasonable conclusion. This operation terminates immediately pending international investigation. The statement carried no actual legal authority but established psychological framework necessary for subsequent negotiation. By defining the situation in terms of international jurisdiction, Naruto created diplomatic complications that would require command-level authorization to override. The specialized units suddenly activated without verbal command, some form of autonomous threat response overriding standard control protocols. Their movement exhibited unnatural speed as they launched coordinated attack against both Naruto and the female fire wielder, modified limbs transforming into specialized weapon configurations. Naruto's response form through instinctive application rather than conscious technique construction. Cold energy surged through his specialized chakra network, manifesting as crystalline structures that erupted from the ground in defensive formation. The ice formations incorporated perfect geometric complexity, molecular-level organization creating structural integrity beyond standard frozen water properties. The modified attackers impacted his defenses with strength exceeding normal human parameters, specialized weapon appendages discharging concentrated chakra designed to shatter frozen barriers. The attack methodologies revealed specific countermeasure development, techniques created to neutralize ice-based abilities through targeted frequency disruption. Behind him, the woman launched complementary defense techniques, not retreating but advancing to engagement position alongside him. Her fire techniques manifested with controlled precision, creating superheated zones that disrupted the specialized its movement patterns rather than attempting direct damage against their reinforced physical structures. They're designed to hunt bloodline carriers, she stated, voice carrying the rough cadence of northern frontier territories. Targeting systems calibrated for thermal signature tracking. The tactical assessment matched Naruto's own observations. The modified units moved with predatory efficiency focused specifically on their unique energy signatures rather than standard combat patterns. Their attacks targeted chakra pathway intersections with precision suggesting specialized sensory capabilities beyond visual acquisition. Cooperative engagement indicated. Naruto responded, recognizing potential synergy between their opposing elemental specializations. Thermal disruption pattern to confuse targeting systems. Her quick nod confirmed shared tactical understanding despite their complete lack of prior coordination. Years of professional combat experience on both sides created foundation for improvisational cooperation against common opponent. They moved into complementary positions, her fire techniques creating localized thermal spikes while his ice abilities generated extreme cold zones in alternating pattern. The rapid temperature fluctuations created sensory confusion for the specialized tracking systems, causing targeting errors that degraded attack efficiency. Irregular encampment forces maintained defensive positions rather than joining direct engagement, uncertainty regarding command hierarchy creating operational hesitation. The commander himself had retreated to communication position, likely seeking direction from superiors regarding appropriate response to unplanned scenario. Yamato and I are establishing containment perimeter, Kakashi's voice reported through the communication link. Hinata monitoring for additional reinforcement deployment. Naruto acknowledged while maintaining focus on the immediate tactical situation. The specialized units adjusted attack parameters to compensate for thermal disruption, reconfiguring into more generalized combat formation. The adaptation revealed sophisticated battle programming beyond simple ETING algorithms, true artificial intelligence systems directing tactical decision-making. Physical structure vulnerability at joint articulation points, the woman observed, fire condensing around her hands in concentrated precision. Thermal expansion differential creates structural weakness. Naruto immediately grasped the tactical concept, her ability to generate extreme heat combined with extreme cold would create material stress beyond design tolerances when applied to connection points between modified and organic components. Their coordinated attack executed with seamless precision. Despite complete lack of prior training together, she generated superheated plasma streams targeting primary joint mechanisms while Naruto simultaneously applied extreme cold to adjacent structures. The thermal shock created catastrophic material failure along integration boundaries, effectively disabling the specialized combat units without requiring complete destruction. Within 70 seconds, all three modified opponents had been neutralized through systematic application of their cooperative technique. The regular encampment forces maintained defensive positions without engaging, ND uncertainty transforming into evident reluctance following demonstration of their combined combat effectiveness. The woman maintained combat readiness despite the immediate threat neutralization. Attention divided between the disabled units and remaining encampment personnel. Standard forces are withdrawing to secondary positions, Hinata reported through the communication link. Command L. Ments initiating data purge protocols consistent with contingency evacuation. Let them go, Kakashi directed. Primary objective achieved through specialized unit acquisition. Pursuing secondary targets creates unnecessary complications. Quote, Naruto acknowledged the tactical logic while maintaining defensive readiness as encampment personnel initiated organized withdrawal. Their disciplined retria, confirmed professional military training rather than common bandit composition, further evidence of Orochi's systematic resource deployment throughout border regions. As the immediate threat diminished, Naruto turned attention to his impromptu combat ally, properly assessing her through both standard and enhanced perception. Early 20s, athletic build optimized for speed and maneuverability rather than raw strength. Distinctive red-gold hair cropped short for practical combat consideration. Her specialized armor incorporated heat-resistant materials with chakra channeling mechanisms focused around joints and spinal alignment. Most notable was her chakra signature, core temperature maintaining approximately 20 degrees above human baseline, specialized pathways optimized for therma. L manipulation similar to his own cold energy adaptations. Another bloodline carrier, he noted, maintaining professional neutrality despite significant curiosity regarding her capabilities and affiliation. Keita Ryu, she introduced herself, fire still dancing between her fingertips as she maintained combat readiness despite the encampment's retreat. Former specialist with Northern Territories Independent Defense Force, current freelance security contractor. The designation registered against Naruto's intelligence briefing materials. NTIDF operated as quasi-independent military organization in disputed territories. Technically neutral regarding major nation politics while maintaining practical autonomy through specialized combat capabilities. Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, though our lack of surprise suggested prior knowledge of his identity. Konoha Special Operations, her amber eyes, unnaturally bright with the same internal luminescence his own had developed, studied him with professional assessment. The rumors about the Snow Fox bloodline were accurate, then. Extreme opposing manifestation of my own Ryu heritage. The reference to her own bloodline confirmed his assessment of her specialized thermal abilities. The Ryu clan had featured in Northern intelligence briefings, fire manipulation specialists with reputed connection to ancient dragon spirits. Their abilities mirrored the Yukimura in specialized thermal manipulation, though focused on heat generation rather than cold manifestation. You deliberately provoked engagement with Orochi's forces, Naruto observed, recognizing tactical patterns from her initial approach. Using your former companions as infiltration method. Keita's expression hardened, fire briefly intensifying around her hands before controlled suppression. Former companions became Orochi's voluntary recruits when payment exceeded ethical considerations. Their choice made them legitimate targets. The cold pragmatism might have made callous from anyone lacking direct experience with betrayal's consequences. Naruto recognized the controlled anger of someone whose trust had been systematically violated, familiar emotional territory despite their otherwise different backgrounds. Orochi's operation here extends beyond simple transit activity, he noted, redirecting toward tactical assessment as Kakashi and Yamato approached their position. Forward deployment in preparation for major movement through the pass, Keita confirmed, fire finally extinguishing around her hands as she recognized additional Konoha operatives. Quote, intelligence suggested connection to bloodline acquisition operations, but details remained fragmentary until recent northern facility evacuations. You've been tracking his activities independently, Kakashi surmised. Visible eye evaluating her with veteran's precision as he joined them. Outside official NTIDF sanction. NTIDF command structures are compromised, she replied without hesitation. Orochi's financial resources purchased sufficient cooperation to neutralize official investigation channels. Independent contractors maintain operational freedom outside hierarchical constraints. The diplomatic phrasing masked what appeared to be personal history with both NTIDF and Orochi's operations, emotional undercurrents suggesting motivation beyond professional obligation. We've secured the specialized combat units for transport, Yamato reported, would release techniques having created containment structures around the disabled opponents. Preliminary assessment suggests extensive modification beyond standard medical parameters. Prototype hunters, Keita identified, professional knowledge overriding any lingering combat tension. Third-generation bloodline targeting cyst. MIS with integrated absorption capabilities designed to extract and temporarily contain chakra signatures for later processing. The technical specificity suggested direct familiarity with Orochi's research methodologies, information beyond standard intelligence briefings available to independent contractors. You've encountered these units before, Naruto observed, watching her reaction carefully. Brief hesitation before measured response. Similar prototypes were deployed against Ryu clan holdings approximately 14 months ago. Their capabilities have advanced considerably since initial field deployment. The personal connection crystallized through subtle vocal modulation and micro-expressions, loss experience underlying professional assessment. Naruto recognized trauma indicators F.ROM extensive field experience with survivors of targeted violence. Your clan was specifically targeted for bloodline harvesting, he concluded, maintaining respectful tone despite the potentially sensitive nature of this observation. Keita met his gaze directly, controlled composure masking deeper emotional currents. The Ryu were among Orochi's primary research subjects during the earlier phases of his experimentation. Our thermal manipulation capabilities provided foundation for his modification techniques before he expanded to other bloodline variants. The clinical description couldn't disguise personal impact evident in subtle physical indicators, increased respiratory rate, minute pupil dilation, unconscious protective posture adopted despite controlled facial expression. Which explains your independent pursuit of his operations, Kakashi noted, visible eye conveying understanding beyond verbal acknowledgement. Personal vendetta operating parallel to professional objectives. Justice and vengeance occasionally align, she replied, neither confirming nor denying the assessment outright. My objectives regarding Orochi's operations appear compatible with your own investigative parameters. The careful diplomatic phrasing suggested calculated cooperation offer rather than emotional appeal, professional pragmatism despite personal motivation. Intelligence sharing would benefit both parties. Naruto acknowledged, frost patterns briefly manifesting along his forearms as he considered strategic implications. Particularly regarding bloodline targeting methodologies and countermeasure development. Provisional cooperation framework pending command authorization, Kakashi qualified, maintaining appropriate procedural boundaries despite evident tactical advantages. Field-level information exchange with formalized parameters. Keita nodded acceptance of these limitations, practical consideration overriding ideal scenario preference. The specialized units provide immediate intelligence value regarding Orochi's current technological development. Their targeting systems incorporate design elements specific to Northern Bloodline signatures, including Ca. Libration for both Ryu and Yukimura energy patterns, Naruto noted, enhanced perception having identified the specialized sensors integrated into the modified units, sensory apparatus. Suggesting an anticipated encounter with both bloodline manifestations, Yamato concluded, completing the tactical assessment. Orochi expected potential engagement with multiple thermal manipulation specialists. Our cooperation between them, Keita added, glancing toward Naruto with speculative assessment. Our collaboration demonstrated effective countermeasure potential against his specialized units. The observation carried strategic significance beyond immediate tactical application. If Orochi had developed specific countermeasures against combined fire and ice abilities, he anticipated potential alliance between surviving bloodline carriers, preparation suggesting either paranoia or legitimate concern regarding opposition capabilities. Operational security requires controlled information exchange, Kakashi decided. Leadership asserting practical parameters around developing cooperation. Basic intelligence sharing regarding Orochi's methodologies and deployment patterns while maintaining appropriate affiliation boundaries. Acceptable framework, Keita agreed, practical considerations clearly outweighing ideal scenario preferences. Cooperative field assessment of secured combat units. Provides immediate value without compromising independent operational parameters. The negotiation established working relationship without requiring formal alliance, pragmatic compromise allowing tactical cooperation while preserving organizational autonomy. Naruto recognized Kakashi's experienced diplomatic handling creating functional framework without overcommitting resources or authority. E should relocate before reinforcements investigate communication failure, Yamato suggested, gesturing toward the specialized containment structures he had created around the disabled combat units. Quote, "These specimens require secure transport protocols to prevent remote reactivation or self-destruction sequences." Agreed, Kakashi confirmed, shifting to operational planning. Secure processing SIT-E established at Waypoint Frost for specialized analysis. Standard division of responsibilities during transport operation. As tactical coordination continued, Naruto found his attention returning to their unexpected ally. Keita maintained professional focus during operational planning, contributing relevant intelligence regarding the specialized units, potential security vulnerabilities. Her Nickel knowledge confirmed extensive background with Orochi's research methodologies, information acquired through direct experience rather than secondary intelligence sources. Beyond practical tactical considerations, her presence represented significant development regarding his own recently manifested abilities. Another bloodline carrier with specialized thermal manipulation capabilities, manifesting through opposite elemental alignment. The Ryu fire manipulation mirrored Yukimura cold manipulation, complementary evolutionary adaptations developing along parallel paths. Their cooperative technique during combat had demonstrated potential synergy beyond simple combination of separate abilities. The thermal differential between their chakra signatures created effects exceeding NDARD additive results, multiplicative power through opposing elemental interaction. Your ice formations display molecular organization beyond standard frozen water properties, Keita noted during transport preparation. Having apparently conducted her own assessment while operational planning continued. True cryokinetic manipulation rather than simple temperature reduction. Naruto nodded, appreciating the technical distinction from someone with specialized thermal understanding. Still developing control parameters. The activation occurred recently with minimal training opportunity. Instinctive application rather than formalized technique development, she observed, recognizing the pattern from her own experience. Bloodline abilities often manifest through crisis response before conscious mastery can be established. Your fire manipulation shows similar precision, he noted, professional curiosity overriding operational focus momentarily. Combustion modulation beyond standard chakra techniques. Brief satisfaction flickered across her features, specialist appreciating technical recognition from capable observer. Ryu techniques focus on manipulating thermal energy at molecular level rather than simply generating flames. Temperature, oxygen interaction, combustion dynamics, all independently controllable through specialized chakra pathways. The technical explanation, aligned with his own developing understanding of the Yukimura abilities, fundamental energy manipulation rather than simple elemental techniques. Both bloodlines operated through specialized interface with thermal principles, though approaching from opposite orientations on the energy spectrum. Transport preparations complete, Yamato announced, interrupting their technical exchange as operational requirements reasserted priority. Departure window optimized for minimal observation probability. Kakashi assigned formation positions with veterans efficiency, integrating Keita into transport. Operation without requiring extensive briefing, professional courtesy acknowledging her evident field experience. Her position in the formation balanced security considerations against practical cooperation benefits. Maintaining appropriate precautionary distance while enabling collaborative intelligence exchange. As they prepared for departure, Keita moved briefly alongside Naruto, voice pitched. For private exchange despite the team's proximity. Your bloodline activation has accelerated Orochi's operational timeline considerably. The specialized units confirmed priority targeting parameters. focused specifically on Yukimura chakra signatures. You think I'm the primary target, Naruto concluded, recognizing the tactical assessment underlying her observation. The Snow Fox Bloodline Rep resents historical counterbalance to his research objectives, she replied, amber eyes conveying significance beyond simple tactical consideration. The Yukimura techniques could theoretically neutralize specific aspects of his modification methodology that my own abilities cannot effectively counter. The statement carried both warning and provisional alliance offer, recognition of complementary capabilities against common adversary despite their limited acquaintance. Cooperative development of countermeasure techniques would benefit both our objectives, Naruto acknowledged, reciprocating the professional exchange while maintaining appropriate operational boundaries. Brief smile, genuine rather than diplomatic, transformed her features momentarily. Fire and ice working together. Orochi's strategic calculations probably didn't anticipate that particular complication. The observation carried valid tactical insight beneath its surface humor. Traditional opposition between elemental specializations would typically prevent cooperation between bloodline carriers with opposing thermal orientations. Their ability to coordinate techniques effectively represented strategic advantage through unexpected tactical configuration. As they departed with the secured combat units, Naruto found himself reflecting on the potential significance of their impromptu alliance. Beyond immediate operational considerations, Keita represented connection to another northern bloodline lineage, parallel evolutionary development that might provide insight into his own newly manifested abilities. The frost patterns beneath his skin pulsed in unconscious response to this consideration, crystalline structures briefly forming along his forearms before conscious control reasserted regulation. Whatever developments followed from this unexpected encounter, the introduction of another specialized bloodline carrier into the evolving situation created both opportunity and complication, tactical variables that would reshape strategic landscape in ways neither Konoha nor Orochi had likely anticipated. Black small square black small square black small square. Tsunade studied the preliminary analysis results with focused concentration, decades of medical experience providing context for the specialized data displayed across multiple monitoring screens. The secured laboratory deep within Anbu headquarters hummed with activity as research teams processed information extracted from the captured combat units. Cellular modification beyond any documented precedent, she observed, examining tissue samples displaying extensive integration between organic and artificial components. Chakra pathway reconfiguration fundamentally alters standard energy distribution patterns. The modification methodology shows evolutionary progression from historical samples, Shizune noted. Comparing current findings against archived data from previous encounters with Orochi's research. Each generation incorporates refinements addressing previous limitations while expanding functional parameters and specific countermeasure development targeting bloodline abilities, Tsunade added, attention shifting to specialized sensor components extracted from the combat units, sensory apparatus. These targeting systems incorporate calibration parameters for multiple bloodline signatures, not just the Yukimura and Ryu thermal manipulations, but several others documented in northern genealogical records. The strategic implications extended beyond immediate security concerns to fundamental shifts in combat capability development. Orochi's research had progressed from theoretical exploration of bloodline transfer techniques to practical application through artificial integration, creating combat units with specifically designed countermeasures against natural genetic abilities. The fire specialist provided valuable context regarding earlier deployment variations. Shikamaru contributed from his position analyzing tactical assessment data. Her Tekken ICAL familiarity with the targeting systems suggests direct experience beyond standard combat encounters. Her clan was among Orochi's primary research subjects during early development phases, Tsunade confirmed. Referencing intelligence reports compiled from multiple sources. The Ryu thermal manipulation abilities provided foundation for his modification techniques before expansion to other bloodline variants. Which explains her independent pursuit of his operations, Shikamaru concluded, connecting motivational factors to observed behavior patterns. Personal vendetta operating parallel to professional objectives. Creating potential alliance of convenience regarding current circumstances, Tsunade acknowledged, pragmatic assessment overriding security concerns regarding unknown operatives. Her technical knowledge provides valuable intelligence regarding Orochi's methodologies. The cooperative technique they developed against the specialized units demonstrated significant potential, Shikamaru noted. Reviewing combat footage recorded through multiple observation perspectives. Their opposing thermal abilities created effects exceeding standard additive results when properly coordinated. Tsunade nodded, medical understanding extending beyond combat applications to underlying physiological principles. Thermal differential between their chakra signatures generates exponential effect through opposing elemental interaction. Theoretically, continued development of cooperative techniques could produce combat capabilities exceeding either individual specialization. The observation carried strategic significance beyond immediate tactical application. Properly developed cooperative methodologies between Naruto and Keita could potentially create countermeasure capabilities specifically effective against Orochi's modified units, evolutionary adaptation through technique development rather than genetic manipulation. Snow Country has formally requested diplomatic consultation regarding the bloodline activation, Shizune reported, changing topics to address developing political complications. Their ambassador arrived this morning with authorization documentation signed by the daimyo directly. Expected development, Tsunade replied, having anticipated this particular diplomatic maneuver since Naruto's return from Northern Territory. The Snow Fox Bloodline holds historical significance within their cultural framework beyond simple combat applications. Their request specifies direct consultation with Uzumaki rather than standard diplomatic channels, Shizune added. Concern evident despite her professional tone. Unusual protocol deviation suggesting specialized knowledge regarding the activation circumstances, or attempting to establish direct connection outside normal oversight frameworks, Shikamaru suggested, tactical mind evaluating potential underlying motivations. Bypassing established channels creates precedent for specialized relationship development. Tsunade considered these perspectives against broader strategic landscape. Snow Country's sudden diplomatic interest following decades of relative isolation suggested in formation networks more extensive than previously recognized. Their awareness of the bloodline activation indicated intelligence capabilities beyond standard international monitoring systems. Provis. Ional diplomatic response acknowledging consultation request without specific timeline commitment, she decided, balancing multiple competing priorities. Standard courtesy protocols while maintaining appropriate security parameters around Naruto's current status. And the fire specialist, Shikamaru inquired, redirecting to immediate tactical considerations. Her intelligence value suggests potential benefit from extended cooperation despite affiliation ambiguity. Controlled intelligence exchange within established operational parameters, Tsunade determined after brief consideration. Her technical familiarity with Orochi's methodologies provides immediate value regarding countermeasure development. The decision balanced security concerns against practical benefits, pragmatic compare. Omise creating functional framework without overcommitting resources or authority. Whatever personal motivations drove Keita's actions against Orochi's operations, her technical knowledge and complementary abilities represented strategic asset in developing situation. Have we determined how Orochi's tracking systems identified the bloodline activation from such distance? Shizune asked, return in G to fundamental security question underlying recent developments. Partial analysis suggests specialized chakra resonance detection, Tsunade replied, referencing preliminary findings from Research Division. The Yukimura activation generated distinctive energy signature detectable through specialized sensor networks Orochi has apparently established throughout Northern Territories. Suggestion: G systematic monitoring infrastructure beyond standard intelligence assessment, Shikamaru concluded, connecting tactical implications. Long-term strategic planning rather than opportunistic response. The observation aligned with developing understanding of Orochi's operational methodology, patient, methodical approach established over decades rather than reactive engagement. His interest in bloodline abilities represented culmination of lifetime research objectives rather than temporary tactical advantage. Current priority remains stabilization of Naruto's condition while developing appropriate countermeasure capabilities. Tsunade stated, refocusing discussion on immediate strategic requirements. The cooperative techniques demonstrated during field engagement suggest potential development pathway incorporating both Yukimura and Ryu methodologies, creating training framework that balances security considerations against technical development requirements, Shikamaru acknowledged. Already formulating potential procedural structures for this specialized objective. As discussion continued regarding operational parameters, Tsunade found herself contemplating broader historical context surrounding current developments. The northern bloodlines had represented specialized evolutionary adaptations to extreme environments, genetic expressions optimized for survival under specific conditions. Their near extinction during the purges had eliminated vast knowledge repositories regarding specialized chakra applications beyond standard elemental techniques. Naruto's unexpected bloodline activation represented potential renaissance of these specialized methodologies, reconnection with evolutionary heritage previously considered lost to history. Beyond immediate tactical applications against Orochi's operations, the Yukimura abilities offered insight into fundamental chakra principles that might revolutionize theoretical understanding across multiple disciplines. Whatever developments followed from these initial manifestations, the re-emergence of the Snow Fox bloodline would inevitably transform strategic landscape throughout northern territories and beyond. Political, military, and cultural frameworks established following the purges would require fundamental recalibration to accommodate this evolutionary resurgence. As medical director and village leader, Tsunade recognized her responsibility to navigate these complexities while supporting Naruto's adaptation to his transformed physiological reality. The diplomatic, strategic, and personal dimensions of current circumstances created multifaceted challenge requiring balanced consideration across competing priorities. The frost patterns recorded in Naruto's latest medical assessment displayed on the center monitoring screen, crystalline structures forming beneath his skin in response to chakra modulation exercises. Their increasing complexity and organizational sophistication demonstrated accelerating integration between his existing systems and the newly manifested bloodline pathways. Whatever Orochi's ultimate objectives regarding the Snow Fox bloodline, Naruto's natural adaptation continued progressing at unprecedented rate, evolutionary development occurring through weeks rather than generations. The transformation represented both opportunity and responsibility, connection to previously lost heritage and potential foundation for future development. As research teams continued processing data from the specialized combat units, Tsunade returned her focus to immediate priorities, establishing effective countermeasure capabilities while managing expanding diplomatic complications. The re-emergence of northern bloodlines into contemporary political landscape would inevitably generate complex response throughout international community. Their preparation for these developing circumstances would determine not only immediate security outcomes but potential evolutionary pathways for generations to come. The Snow Fox had returned from historical obscurity into active engagement with current strategic landscape, ancient power awakening to modern application through unexpected genetic expression. Whatever consequences followed from this awakening, the transformation had only begun. Like the northern winter itself, the changes developing from the bloodline activation would reshape the landscape through inexorable progression rather than sudden catastrophe, patient power flowing through natural pathways toward inevitable conclusion. Black small square, black small square, black small square. In hidden laboratory deep beneath northern mountains, Orochi Yukishiro reviewed combat data with methodical precision, amber eyes studying performance metrics from his specialized units with scientific detachment despite the operation's failure. 3 prototype hunters destroyed through cooperative technique application between opposing bloodline carriers, unexpected tactical development requiring strategic recalibration. The thermal differential exceeded design tolerance parameters, he observed, examining structural failure analysis displaying molecular disintegration along artificial-organic integration boundaries. Our counter measure systems were calibrated for individual bloodline engagement rather than coordinated application. Adaptation capabilities demonstrated significant limitation against simultaneous extreme temperature fluctuation. The chief technical specialist acknowledged, adjusting display parameters to highlight specific failure points. The targeting systems maintained acquisition lock but actuator response deteriorated under competing thermal stress conditions. Orochi nodded, scientific curiosity overriding operational disappointment. The unexpected cooperation between Yukimura and Ryu Bloodline. Nei carriers represented fascinating evolutionary development, natural adaptation through behavioral modification rather than genetic expression. The snow fox and dragon fire working together, he mused. Genuine appreciation coloring his tone despite strategic complication this development created. Historical records suggested fundamental incompatibility between their chakra signatures, yet they achieved cooperative technique application through complementary modulation, suggesting potential recalibration requirement for our operational assumptions regarding bloodline interaction limitations, the specialist noted. Professional assessment matching Orochi's own conclusions. Or evolutionary adaptation beyond historical parameters, Orochi suggested, consideration extending beyond IMID. IATE tactical implications to fundamental research principles. The Uzumaki-Yukimura hybridization already demonstrates unprecedented integration between previously incompatible systems. Perhaps CML AR adaptive potential exists regarding external cooperation frameworks. The possibility created both complication and opportunity regarding his research objectives. Cooperative techniques between opposing bloodline carriers represented strategic challenge against his specialized units, but also demonstrated integration potential beyond previous theoretical limitations, confirmation of adaptability. Why principles underlying his fundamental research hypothesis. Accelerate fourth-generation prototype development, he directed, decision forming through systematic evaluation of available information. Incorporate thermal differential compensation mechanisms based on observed failure analysis. Recalibrate targeting systems for potential multi-carrier engagement scenarios. As technical specialists moved to implement these directives, Orochi returned attention to the primary monitoring display showing Naruto's location within Konoha's specialized training facility. The distance separating the M had diminished psychological significance through technological transparency, observation capabilities rendering physical proximity increasingly irrelevant. The Snow Fox bloodline had returned through unexpected genetic expression, awakening ancient power thought eliminated during the purges. Whatever developments followed from this re-emergence, the fundamental research objective remained unchanged. Despite tactical adjustments, completion of work begun generations earlier through methodologies refined across decades of systematic experimentation. Frost patterns briefly manifested beneath Orochi's skin as he contemplated these developments, artificial implementation of natural genetic expression, scientific reproduction of evolutionary adaptation. The patterns lacked the perfect crystalline organization visible in Naruto's manifestations, geometric precision compromised through technical limitation rather than fundamental design flaw. Soon, he promised himself, amber eyes reflecting. The monitoring displays cold illumination. The circle completes itself through patient progression. Winter always returns, regardless of intervening seasons. The laboratory continued its methodical operation around him. Technical specialists implementing directives with practiced efficiency. The fourth-generation prototypes would incorporate lessons derived from current failure analysis, adapt development through iterative progression, improvement through systematic application of empirical observation. Outside the mountain laboratory, snow continued falling across northern landscapes, each unique crystalline structure representing perfect geometric expression of fundamental natural principles. Like the bloodline abilities themselves, the snowfall demonstrated organized complexity. Developing through evolutionary adaptation rather than conscious design, natural processes creating sophisticated systems through incremental accumulation rather than revolutionary transformation. The Snow Fox and Dragon Fire had demonstrated unexpected cooperative potential against his specialized units. The tactical surprise had temporarily disrupted operational parameters but provided valuable data regarding future development requirements. Adaptation continued on both sides of the evolutionary equation, natural bloodline development and artificial modification progressing through parallel pathways toward inevitable convergence. Orochi's amber eyes reflected momentary satisfaction as he contemplated this fundamental symmetry. Whatever temporary advantages unexpected cooperation might provide, the ultimate research objective remained inevitable through patient application of scientific methodology. The specialized units would adapt to counter cooperative techniques just as the Blood L. In carriers adapted to current tactical challenges, evolutionary progression continuing through mutual development regardless of immediate operational outcomes. Prepare Northern Facility Activation Protocols. He instructed the operational coordinator standing nearby. The acceleration timeline requires expanded processing capacity beyond current configuration. As directives flowed through command hierarchy, Orochi maintained focus on the primary monitoring display. The frost patterns beneath his skin pulsed in unconscious resonance with the distant bloodline carrier whose awakened ability represented both culmination and continuation of research spanning generations. The circle continued turning through inexorable progression, winter returning after seasons of apparent absence. The Snow Fox bloodline had awakened from historical dormancy into contemporary engagement, ancient power finding new expression through unexpected genetic manifestation. Whatever consequences followed from this awakening, the fundamental research objective remained unchanged despite tactical adjustments. Patient application of scientific methodology would continue advancing toward inevitable conclusion regardless of temporary operational complications. "Welcome to the game, nephew," Orochi whispered toward the distant image. "Your move has been noted and countered." The progression continues according to fundamental principles. Snow continued falling outside the mountain laboratory, each perfect crystalline structure demonstrating natural implementation of organized complexity, evolutionary adaptation manifesting through individual expression within systematic framework. Like the bloodline abilities themselves, the snowfall represented fundamental natural principles operating through established pathways regardless of conscious observation or intervention. Winter had returned to the north. The ancient power awakened from dormancy into active engagement with contemporary landscape. Whatever consequences followed from this re-emergence, the fundamental progression continued through inexorable development, patient power flowing through natural pathways toward inevitable conclusion. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Northern Lights. White-capped mountains pierced an azure sky as the diplomatic caravan wound through narrow switchback passes toward Snow Country's capital. Drifts piled alongside the path where removal teams had carved a navigable route through otherwise impassable terrain. Naruto stood atop the lead transport vehicle, scanning the horizon with enhanced perception that transformed the monochromatic landscape into complex thermal tapestry. His body had acclimated to the environment with startling ease, the bitter cold that forced his companions to huddle beneath special IZED gear registering as perfectly comfortable against his altered physiology. "Enjoying yourself?" Keita asked, joining him on the observation platform. Unlike the Konoha delegation bundled in thermal protection, she wore lightweight armor that left her arms partially exposed, heat radiating from her form in visible waves that distorted the air around her. "It feels right," Naruto admitted. Watching frost patterns dance beneath his skin in unconscious response to the surrounding environment. "Like finding something I never knew was missing." 10 days had passed since their unexpected alliance during the border skirmish. Tsunade's conditional approval of Keita's involvement in the diplomatic mission had come after extensive security verification and strategic assessment, pragmatic compromise between security protocols and practical necessity given her specialized knowledge of northern politics. "The capital lies beyond that final ridge," Keita noted, indicating a distant formation W. Here the mountain range dipped slightly before rising again. Umegakure, village hidden in dreams. Naruto studied the location, enhanced perception detecting the subtle chakra barrier surrounding the region. Defensive system engineered to manipulate environmental conditions rather than directly repel intruders. Environmental genjutsu integrated with natural terrain features. The oldest protection system in the Northern Territories. Keita confirmed. Specialized barrier techniques that interface with natural snowfall patterns to create disorientation effects. Unauthorized travelers become trapped in recursive navigation loops until retrieval teams either escort or eliminate them. The defensive methodology reflected environmental adaptation rather than raw power application, practical solution to protection requirements within extreme conditions. Naruto found himself appreciating the elegant efficiency underlying the approach. Below them, the caravan's progress maintained steady pace despite difficult terrain. 6 vehicles comprised the official delegation, 3 from Konoha carrying diplomatic personnel, 2 from Snow Country serving as escort, and 1 specialized transport C. obtaining research equipment for the Bloodline assessment protocols that had been negotiated as condition for the visit. The mission's diplomatic framework provided convenient coverage for its actual purpose, investigating connections between the Snow Fox bloodline and Snow Country's historical power structures. Tsunade had authorized the deployment following multiple formal requests from Snow Country's government for direct consultation regarding Naruto's historical heritage activation, as their communications had phrased it. "You seem tense," Naruto observed, noting the subtle shift in Ida's posture as they approached the capital region. Political complications. The capital concentrates political factions that normally maintain territorial separation, she replied, amber eyes scanning the approaching ridgeline with professional assessment. Competing interests temporarily aligned through necessity rather than genuine cooperation. Including factions with Orochi connections, Naruto surmised. Connecting implications from intelligence briefings regarding Snow Country's internal power dynamics. The Yukishiro Financial Consortium maintains significant economic influence. Despite official distancing from Orochi's research activities, Keita confirmed, voice carrying controlled neutrality that couldn't completely mask underlying tension. Their representatives will undoubtedly attend formal diplomatic functions while maintaining plausible deniability regarding direct involvement with his operations. The information aligned with Shikamaru's strategic assessment during mission preparation. Political complexity creating operational challenge beyond standard diplomatic parameters. Snow Country's governmental structure incorporated aristocratic hierarchy alongside military meritocracy, creating layered authority systems where official titles often masked actual power distribution. Think of it as infiltrating multiple overlapping targets simultaneously, Shikamaru had explained during the mission briefing. Official diplomatic functions provide access to governmental representatives, while social engagements create contact opportunities with aristocratic power structures. The military establishment requires separate engagement strategies despite theoretical subordination to civilian authority. The caravan approached the final ridge separating them from the capital, where Snow Country's escort contingent signaled for a brief halt. A specialized team disembarked to perform barrier passage protocols, sequence of hand seals and chakra applications that would temporarily modify the defensive system to permit authorized transit. The barrier passage creates opportunity for observation, Naruto noted quietly, enhanced senses detecting subtle chakra fluctuations as the specialized team performed their techniques. Anyone watching would identify delegation composition and capability indicators. Keita nodded, having reached similar assessment. Standard procedure creates standardized vulnerability. Someone with Orochi's resources would have countermeasures prepared for precisely this scenario. The observation reflected professional paranoia, justified by extensive field experience, recognition of procedural exploitation opportunities that most observers would overlook. Naruto found himself appreciating her tactical mindset despite their relatively brief acquaintance. The barrier rippled visibly as passage authorization completed, atmospheric distortion creating momentary aurora-like effect across the sky above their position. Environmental conditions within the protected region shifted perceptibly, temperature moderating several degrees as artificially regulated climate systems engaged. Microclimatic control systems, Keita explained, noting Naruto's interest in the environmental shift. Specialized temperature regulation techniques developed from ancient Yukimura methodologies. The capital maintains constant conditions regardless of external weather patterns. The caravan resumed forward progress, passing through the barrier with momentary resistance that registered as subtle pressure against Naruto's enhanced senses. Beyond the threshold, the landscape transformed, carefully maintained infrastructure replacing natural terrain features as they entered the capital region proper. Umegakure revealed itself gradually as they descended the final approach, concentric rings of development spreading outward from central administrative complex. Unlike Konoha's organic growth patterns that incorporated natural features throughout the village structure, Snow Country's capital exhibited meticulous organization, geometric precision reflecting centralized planning rather than evolutionary development. Impressive engineering, Naruto observed, studying architectural elements that incorporated specialized materials designed for thermal efficiency alongside aesthetic considerations. Necessity-driven innovation, Keita replied. Professional assessment evident beneath casual delivery. Extreme environments require systematic solutions rather than incremental adaptation. The capital's design incorporates centuries of accumulated knowledge regarding survival architecture within hostile conditions. The observation carried meaningful subtext beyond architectural appreciation, recognition of fundamental philosophica. Difference between northern cultural development and more temperate regions. Where fire countries' approach emphasized flexible adaptation to changing circumstances, snow countries' methodology priori chized systematic preparation against known environmental challenges. Their transport approached the central administrative district where official reception had been arranged according to diplomatic protocols negotiated through advance communication. The delegation's Konoha section comprised 12 individuals, 4 diplomatic personnel including Naruto, 6 security specialists under Kakashi's command, and 2 research specialists authorized to conduct mutually approved bloodline assessment procedures. Reception committee includes representatives from all 3 primary factions, Keita noted. Studying the assembled officials awaiting their arrival. Military, aristocratic, and administrative contingents maintaining careful positional distancing despite unified presentation. Naruto Rec. Organized the subtle power dynamics visible through positioning and body language, internal competition masked behind ceremonial cooperation. The reception committee's central figure stood slightly forward. Road of the others, older man wearing administrative robes bearing Snow Country's official insignia alongside specialized honor markings. Chancellor Takeo Kazuhana, Keita identified quietly. Chief Ad. Administrative authority and official representative of the daimyo in matters concerning international relations. His influence has diminished in recent years as military factions gained prominence through border security justifications. The information supplemented official briefing materials with practical assessment based on direct experience, valuable context beyond diplomatic formalities. Naru, to filed this perspective alongside other intelligence regarding Snow Country's leadership structure, building comprehensive understanding necessary for navigating complex political landscape. Their transport halted at designated position. Official reception procedures commencing with practiced precision. Diplomatic representatives disembarked in predetermined sequence according to protocols established through preliminary negotiations. Naruto's position within the delegation had been carefully calibrated, present as specialist consultant rather than primary diplomatic representative, providing operational flexibility while maintaining appropriate ceremonial inclusion. Chancellor Kazuhana stepped forward as the delegation assembled, offering formal greeting with measured dignity that reflected decades of diplomatic experience. Konoha's representatives honor us with their presence. Snow Country welcomes you in the spirit of continued cooperation between our nations. The ceremonial exchange continued through required formalities, each phrase carrying carefully calibrated significance within diplomatic framework. Naruto maintained appropriate observational position while cataloging details beyond verbal communication, positioning dynamics between faction representatives, subtle indicators of internal hierarchy, security deployment patterns around the reception area. His enhanced perception registered additional information invisible to standard observation. The Chancellor's body temperature ran slightly below normal human baseline despite his advanced age, subtle indicator of specialized adaptation to northern climate conditions. Several military representatives displayed chakra pathway configurations suggesting specialized training in Snow Country's unique techniques. Throughout the assembled officials, varying thermal signatures indicated bloodline dilution rather than complete absence, genetic heritage diminished through generations rather than eliminated entirely. As ceremonial exchange concluded, the delegation separated into functional groups according to predetermined schedule. Diplomatic personnel proceeded toward formal reception within administrative complex, while security specialists coordinated with local counterparts regarding operational protocols. Research representatives prepared specialized equipment for transfer to designated assessment facilities where bloodline examination would occur under mutually approved oversight. Naruto followed the diplomatic contingent according to mission parameters, Keita maintaining appropriate proximity as specialist consultant regarding northern customs. Their inclusion in formal reception balanced multiple strategic objectives, establishing appropriate diplomatic presence while creating observation opportunities regarding Snow Country's leadership dynamics. The administrative complex's central chamber reflected governmental philosophy through architectural expression, geometric precision incorporating traditional elements alongside practical considerations. Massive crystal formations suspended from vaulted ceilings captured and redistributed natural light throughout the space, while specially Z heating systems maintained comfortable temperature despite extensive windows overlooking snow-covered landscapes. The crystal configurations serve both aesthetic and practical functions, Keita explained as they proceeded through the chamber. Ancient Ukamura techniques modified natural formations to create specialized light distribution systems optimized for northern environmental conditions. The information carried significance beyond architectural appreciation, another connection between Naruto's awakened bloodline and Snow Country's developmental history. The Ukamura influence ended throughout northern infrastructure despite their supposed extinction, technological legacy preserved through practical application despite cultural suppression. The formal reception unfolded according to standard diplomatic procedures, carefully choreographed interactions designed to establish working relationships while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Naruto observed the proceedings with professional assessment, identifying influence patterns and faction alignments through subtle behavioral indicators while maintaining appropriate engagement with official introductions. Chancellor Kazuhana approached their position as ceremonial refreshments were distributed among attendees. His weathered features carried dignity earned through decades of administrative service, though politica pressures had etched permanent tension around his eyes. Specialist Uzumaki, he greeted, using the formal designation established through diplomatic communication. Your presence honors us beyond standard diplomatic courtesy. The historical significance of your unique heritage carries profound meaning within our cultural context. The careful phrasing acknowledged the bloodline situatio. Without direct reference, diplomatic circumlocution masking genuine interest beneath ceremonial exchange. Naruto responded with appropriate formality while studying the Chancellor's micro-expressions for indicators regarding his actual perspective on the situation. Snow Country's invitation demonstrated significant consideration for historical context, he replied, selecting language that reciprocated diplomatic courtesy without committing to specific interpretations. Understanding cultural significance provides valuable perspective regarding recent developments. The Chancellor nodded slightly, appreciation evident for the carefully balanced response. Perhaps opportunity will arise for more substantive discussion beyond ceremonial requirements. Certain historical contexts benefit own direct exchange rather than formalized communication. The suggestion carried significant diplomatic weight. Senior government official proposing unofficial communication outside established protocols. Before Naruto could formulate appropriate response, subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere interrupted their exchange. Attention gravitated toward the chamber's main entrance where new arrival had created momentary disruption in ceremonial proceedings. Conversations paused briefly as assembled officials registered the unexpected presence before deliberately resuming previous discussions. Slightly elevated volume, collective attempt to demonstrate insignificance regarding the development. The new arrival moved through the chamber with composed confidence that belied the subtle tension her presence generated. Early 30s, striking features framed by platinum hair secured in elaborate style that incorporated traditional northern elements with contemporary execution. Her attire balanced ceremonial requirements against practical considerations. Formal robes modified for potential mobility requirements rather than purely decorative function. Most notable was her chakra signature, specialized configuration indicating systematic training in Snow Country's unique techniques alongside genetic predisposition toward cold environment adaptation. Her body temperature registered several degrees below standard human baseline, significant variation suggesting specialized physiological development beyond environmental acclimation. Miyuki Kazuhana, Keita identified quietly, owning herself to maintain unobstructed observation lines despite shifting crowd dynamics. The Chancellor's niece and theoretical heir to administrative authority before political reorganization diminished hereditary influence within governmental structure. The Chancellor's subtle tension confirmed familial connection despite attempted neutrality. My niece maintains independent diplomatic stand. Through historical family position despite official separation from administrative functions, he explained, professional composure masking evident complexity regarding their relationship. Naruto observed the approaching figure with increased interest given this context. Miyuki's movement through the chamber demonstrated practiced social navigation, acknowledging appropriate officials with precisely calibrated courtesy while maintaining efficient progress toward their position. Her calculated efficiency suggested military training underlying diplomatic presentation, strategic mind applying tactical principles to social environment. Chancellor, she greeted upon reaching their position, offering formal acknowledgement that precisely matched required protocol without additional warmth. Quote, Konoha's delegation arrives at significant juncture regarding regional developments. Fortunate timing given increased border activities requiring multilateral consideration. The statement contained multiple communication layers, official acknowledgement of diplomatic visitors alongside subtle criticism regarding security conditions and implied information regarding border situations beyond public disclosure. The linguistic efficiency demonstrated considerable intelligence beneath ceremonial compliance. Specialist Uzumaki represents Konoha's commitment to regional stability through appropriate information sharing. The Chancellor responded, matching her linguistic precision with practiced diplomatic skill. His unique perspective offers valuable insight regarding developments affecting multiple territorial interests. The calculated introduction established connection without specifying bloodline details, diplomatic circumlocution creating official context for subsequent interaction. Miyuki turned her attention directly to Naruto, pale blue eyes studying him with analytical assessment that made no attempt to disguise its thoroughness. Your arrival generates significant interest across multiple factions, she stated, dispensing with ceremonial pleasantries entirely. The Yukimura activation represents strategic variable affecting northern political calculations beyond immediate security considerations. The direct approach contrasted sharply with surrounding diplomatic circumlocution, refreshing forthrightness despite potential protocol violation. Naruto found himself appreciating the efficiency despite recognizing potential complications such directness might create within formal setting. Recent developments have accelerated information sharing requirements beyond standard diplomatic timelines. He replied, matching her directness while maintaining appropriate public discretion. Understanding historical context provides essential foundation for appropriate response coordination. Miyuki's expression remained composed while her eyes conveyed appreciation for his balanced response. Historical context extends beyond publicly acknowledged parameters in this particular situation. Perhaps opportunity for more substantive exchange exists outside ceremonial limitations. The suggestion mirrored her uncle's earlier proposal despite their apparent political separation, indication of potential alignment regarding Naruto's situation despite other disagreements. Before further exchange could develop, deliberate interruption arrived in form of military reprise. NTATIVE approaching their position with ceremonial announcement. Honored guests, specialized demonstration has been prepared according to established diplomatic protocols. Military Division Repression, Tatives request your presence at designated observation facilities. The interruption's timing suggested deliberate monitoring of their conversation, intervention preventing further development of official communication channels before formal protocols had been satisfied. Naruto noted the subtle tension between military representative and both Kazuhana family members despite maintained public courtesy. We look forward to observing Snow Country's renowned military capabilities, the Konoha diplomatic lead responded, smoothly transitioning toward the scheduled activity while maintaining appropriate enthusiasm despite the transparent manipulation attempt. As the delegation reorganized for movement toward the demonstration facilities, Miyuki positioned herself alongside Naruto with practiced casualness that would appear coincidental to most observers. The military faction accelerates territorial objectives through external threat emphasis, she stated quietly, voice calibrated for is enhanced hearing while remaining inaudible to others nearby. Your bloodline activation provides both opportunity and complication regarding their expansion justifications. The information transfer demonstrated trust beyond diplomatic necessity, valuable intelligence regarding internal political dynamics affecting mission parameters. Naruto acknowledged this with subtle nod while maintaining appropriate public demeanor as they proceeded with the larger group. The military demonstration incorporates specialized techniques derived from historical Yukimura methodologies, she continued, Professional briefing disguised as casual conversation. Technological adaptation rather than genetic application. Mechanical reproduction of bloodline capabilities through engineered systems rather than natural expression. The distinction carried significant implications regarding Snow Country's military development following the Yukimura clan's presumed extinction. Unable to maintain bloodline abilities through natural inheritance, they had developed technological alternatives, engineering solutions to replace genetic advantages. Impressive adaptation to resource limitations, Naruto observed. Genuine appreciation underlying diplomatic courtesy. Necessity drives innovation more effectively than comfortable circumstances, Miyuki replied, brief smile transforming her features with unexpected warmth. Northern development prioritizes survival functionality over theoretical elegance, practical solutions to immediate challenges rather than philosophical exploration of optimal approaches. The observation revealed fundamental cultural perspective beyond specific technological applications. Pragmatic philosophy developed through environmental necessity rather than abstract consideration. Naruto found himself appreciating the perspective despite its contrast with more traditional shinobi approaches to technique development. Their group exited the administrative complex toward Specie, a leased demonstration facilities established within adjacent military district. The architectural transition marked clear philosophical boundary, administrative elegance giving way to martial functional. As aesthetic considerations became subordinated to practical requirements. The military district operates under separate jurisdictional framework despite theoretical subordination to civilian authority, Miyuki explained. Continuing their seemingly casual conversation. Recent security emphasis has expanded their operational autonomy beyond traditional limitations, creating effectively independent power center within governmental structure, Naruto concluded, recognizing political implications beyond immediate organizational description. Miyuki's eyes reflected appreciation for his quick analysis. Precisely. Traditional balance between administrative, aristocratic, and military authorities has shifted significantly following recent Northern Territory disturbances. Disturbances connected to Orochi's operations. Keita interjected, having maintained position within conversational range while appearing focused on environmental assessment. Creating security justifications our expanded military authority through managed threat scenarios. The assessment aligned with intelligence briefings regarding Snow Country's evolving political landscape. Military factions had systematically leveraged border security concerns to expand jurisdictional authority beyond traditional limitations. Transformation accelerated through external threat emphasis despite limited actual confrontation. Their group entered specialized observation facility overlooking demonstration grounds where Snow Country's military units had prepared choreographed exhibition of their specialized techniques. The viewing platform provided comprehensive perspective while maintaining appropriate separation between diplomatic visitors and active demonstration area. The presentation focuses on technological applications rather than individual capability demonstrations, Miyuki noted as they established observation position. Systematic approach emphasizing coordinated deployment over specialized lens, quantity reproduction of standardized techniques rather than quality development of unique abilities. The observation contained subtle criticism beneath factual description, aristocratic perspective regarding military prioritization of systematic reproduction over individual excellence. The philosophical difference highlighted continuing tension between traditional values emphasizing specialized mastery and modern approaches favoring standardized deployment models. The demonstration commenced with precision that confirmed extensive preparation, coordinated movements demonstrating systematic training methodology rather than individualized technique development. Unit configurations moved through sequential deployments showcasing specialized equipment designed for northern environment. Operations. Technological adaptations compensating for natural limitations within extreme conditions. Naruto observed with professional assessment, identifying strategic principles underlying tactical demonstrations. The specialized techniques incorporated elements recognizable from historical descriptions of Yukimura methodologies, though mechanically reproduced rather than naturally generated. Here true bloodline abilities would create effects through innate connection with environmental conditions. These technological approximations relied on engineered systems requiring external chakra application. Effective reproduction of surface-level capabilities, he noted quietly, frost patterns momentarily visible beneath his skin as he unconsciously compared their techniques against his emerging natural abilities. Though lacking fundamental connection with underlying principles, the difference between memorizing mathematical formulas and understanding conceptual foundations, Miyuki agreed. Appreciation evident for his analytical distinction. They reproduce specific techniques without comprehending essential principles governing natural manifestations. The observation reflect sophisticated understanding beyond simple technological assessment, recognition of fundamental difference between engineered reproduction and genetic inheritance regarding bloodline capabilities. Uki's perspective suggested knowledge exceeding standard historical documentation, specialized information regarding Yukimura abilities beyond publicly acknowledged parameters. As the demonstration progressed toward increasingly sophisticated techniques, Naruto's enhanced perception detected subtle energy fluctuations throughout the facility, monitoring systems actively recording his physiological responses to the displayed capabilities. The observation equipment had been carefully positioned to appear as standard security infrastructure while actually focusing specialized sensors toward the diplomatic viewing platform. They're evaluating your reactions to determine actual bloodline integration levels, Miyuki confirmed, having noticed his attention toward the monitoring systems. Standard assessment methodology developed during historical bloodline research programs before ethical restrictions limited direct examination protocols. The information carried disturbing implications. Regarding Snow Country's historical approach to bloodline research, systematic programs developed specifically for evaluating genetic capabilities through indirect observation methods. The methodologies Augusted institutional knowledge preserved despite official discontinuation of such programs following international agreements regarding ethical research limitations. The military maintains special IZED research division operating outside standard oversight frameworks, Miyuki continued, voice lowered further despite already private conversation. Their interest in your activation extends beyond standard security considerations to practical application potential regarding technique reproduction methodologies. They want to reverse engineer the bloodline abilities, Naruto surmised, connecting implications from both the demonstration and monitoring activities. Among other objectives, Miyuki confirmed, the Yukimura techniques represent fundamental component within Northern historical development, technological foundation supporting multiple infrastructure systems beyond simple combat applications. The broader significance contextualized Snow Country's intense interest beyond immediate security concerns. The bloodline abilities connected to fundamental developmental history throughout Northern territories, technological heritage preserved through application despite cultural suppression of its originators. As the military demonstration reached culmination phase, Naruto detected subtle chakra fluctuation beyond the scheduled activities, anomalous energy signature registering against his enhanced sensory perception. The disturbance originated from position outside standard security perimeter, chakra modulation suggesting specialized technique preparation rather than simple observation. Keita tensed beside him, having registered similar anomaly through her own specialized senses. Unauthorized chakra manifestation approximately 200 meters beyond northeastern security boundary. She reported quietly, professional assessment overriding diplomatic courtesy concerns. Naruto tracked the developing signature with focused concentration, enhanced perception providing detailed analysis despite intervening structures and distance. The chakra pattern displayed artificial modification characteristics similar to those observed in Orochi's specialized combat units. Though more sophisticated than previous encounters, advanced integration between organic and engineered components creating hybrid signature that would be undetectable to standard sensory methods. Quote, specialized observer using artificial sensory enhancement, he concluded, information consolidating into tactical assessment. Chakra's signature suggests advanced modification beyond standard parameters. Miyuki registered their sudden alertness with immediate comprehension, intelligence gathering shifting seamlessly into security assessment without requiring explicit explanation. Our counterant, Legence Division monitors several known observation positions used by external interests. This signature appears outside established surveillance networks. The distinction carried significant secure ITY implications. Unknown observer operating beyond standard intelligence frameworks suggesting either new player entering regional dynamics or established entity using unprecedented methodologies. Given recent developments, connection to Orochi's operations seemed most probable despite lack of definitive confirmation. Naruto exchanged brief glance with Keita, silent communication establishing res. Pon's coordination without verbal requirements. Their previous combat cooperation had established functional protocols despite limited formal training together, professional understanding transcending organizational differences. Observation only or active threat assessment? Keita asked, ambient temperature around her position rising slightly as she prepared potential combat response despite maintaining casual posture. Before Naruto could respond, the anomalous chakra signature suddenly intensified, energy concentration transitioning from passive observation to active technique preparation. He modified pattern suggested specialized targeting system activating acquisition protocols rather than standard combat technique. Active targeting sequence initiating, he reported, frost patterns. Manifesting along his forearms as combat readiness engaged automatically in response to threat identification. Signature configuration matches specialized acquisition systems observed in previous Orochi units. Miyuki processed this assessment with remarkable composure given the sudden security deterioration within diplomatic context. Standard response protocols would require notification through established channels before countermeasure authorization could be processed. The observation highlighted procedural limitations within formal security frameworks, bureaucratic requirements created. Response delays despite clear threat indicators. Naruto recognized the implicit suggestion beneath her statement, acknowledgement of official constraints alongside tacit permission for independent act. Ion outside formal authorization channels. Independent security assessment creates operational flexibility outside procedural limitations, he noted, establishing mutual understanding regarding potential unofficial response options. Miyuki's slight nod confirmed shared perspective despite lack of explicit authorization. Hypothetically, specialized consultants might pursue investigative ASA's SM, and without requiring formal deployment orders given their unique qualification for such evaluation. The carefully phrased statement created deniable authorization framework, establishing theoretical justification for independent action while maintaining official separation from such activities. The linguistic precision demonstrated sophisticated understanding of operational realities beyond diplomatic formalities. Naruto conveyed confirmation through subtle gesture while maintaining outward attention toward the continuing military demonstration. The anomalous chakra signature had stabilized at elevated concentration level, suggesting imminent technique deployment following completed targeting sequence. Northwestern approach provides optimal insertion vector with minimal observation probability, Keita noted. Professional assessment translating immediately into tactical planning. External security perimeter incorporates sensor blind spot approximately 20 meters wide due to terrain interference patterns. 30-second window between scheduled demonstration phases provides distraction coverage for unobtrusive exit, Naruto added, integrating operational parameters into coordinated plan development. Miyuki observed their efficient planning exchange with evident appreciation despite the concerning circumstances. Administrative authorization could theoretically be dead for specialized evaluation regarding unscheduled energy manifestations detected through standard monitoring systems. The statement provided additional operational coverage, establishing plausible, official explanation for their activities should diplomatic complications arise from independent action. The layered approach demonstrated sophisticated understanding of both security requirements and political realities. Initiating specialized assessment, Naruto confirmed as the demonstration reached transitional phase creating necessary distraction coverage. Continuing diplomatic observation through shadow clone deployment. His hands formed necessary seals with practiced efficiency, chakra molding into specialized configuration that incorporated his unique dual-nature energy system. He shadow clone that materialized beside him contained sufficient stability for temporary diplomatic coverage while demonstrating none of the frost manifestations that would betray its artificial nature to careful observers. As the clone integrated seamlessly into the diplomatic group, Naruto and Keita executed coordinated withdrawal through identified extraction route, movement calibrated to expel. OIT both architectural blind spots and attentional limitations during demonstration transition. Their specialized training allowed efficient navigation through security perimeters without triggering street and detection systems designed for conventional infiltration attempts. Reaching exterior position beyond immediate observation range, they transitioned to accelerated movement toward the anomalous chakra signature's location. Naruto's enhanced perception maintained continuous tracking despite increasing distance and intervening structures, while Keita established parallel monitoring through her own specialized sensory capabilities. Signature maintaining consistent output levels, he reported as they navigated between structures comprising the capital's outer district. No indication of detection regarding our approach. Overconfidence or specialized focus? Keita questioned. Professional assessment considering multiple tactical possibilities. Specialized focus, Naruto concluded after brief consideration. The signature configuration suggests dedicated targeting system operating according to predetermined parameters rather than general surveillance functionality. The Distan, Seishin carried tactical significance regarding approach methodology. Dedicated system focusing on specific objectives would demonstrate reduced awareness regarding secondary threats outside primary targeting parameters. This operational limitation created exploitation opportunity despite the system's advanced capabilities within its specialized function. They approached final position with appropriate caution despite temporal pressure from the developing situation. The anomalous signature originated from concealed location within abandoned maintenance structure overlooking the military demonster. Asian grounds. Optimal observation position providing comprehensive viewpoint while remaining outside standard security perimeters. Structural configuration suggests deliberate preparation rather than opportunistic positioning. Keita observed, noting modifications to the building's exterior that created specialized observation ports while maintaining apparent abandonment. Established surveying, CE location rather than temporary deployment. The assessment aligned with Naruto's own observations. The position had been carefully prepared for specialized observation activities, suggesting system Attic intelligence gathering operations rather than reactive response to recent developments. The preparation quality indicated professional methodology beyond standard espionage practices. Single op, orator based on thermal signature distribution, he noted, enhanced perception registering body heat patterns despite structural barriers. Modified physiological configuration suggesting specialized adaptation for extended surveillance operations. They established optimal approach vectors based on this intelligence, positioning for coordinated intervention that would neutralize the observer BEF. Or they could complete whatever targeting operation had been initiated. Naruto's frost patterns intensified as he channeled chakra through specialized pathways, preparing ice-based containment technique. K designed to immobilize rather than damage, capture prioritized over elimination given intelligence value potential. Ready, Keita confirmed, heat shimmer surrounding her hands as she prepared calm. Plementary technique designed to disrupt any potential electronic equipment through localized electromagnetic interference. Their coordinated approach executed with precision born from professional experience despite limited joint training. Naruto's ice technique manifested through specialized pathways that allowed molecular-level control rather than simple freezing, crystalline structures forming with geometric precision to create instantaneous containment system around the target position. Simultaneously, Keita's heat technique generated precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse that would disrupt electronic equipment without causing catastrophic damage that might destroy valuable intelligence. The complementary techniques deployed with synchronized timing that demonstrated their developing tactical compatibility despite opposing elemental specializations. The target registered their approach fractionally before technique deployment, impressive awareness given their stealth precautions. A blur of movement within the structure suggested attempted evasion, though Naruto's enhanced perception tracked the motion with sufficient accuracy to adjust his technique's deployment parameters accordingly. The ice formation completed its materialization with mathematical precision, crystalline structures interlocking to create comprehensive containment system throughout the structure's interior. Naruto maintained chakra flow to ensure structural integrity as they entered through access point created specifically within the technique's formation. Inside, environmental conditions had transformed through his technique's application. Temperature reduced significantly while crystalline formations covered all surfaces with geometric precision. At the center of this transformation, the IR target remained partially mobile despite impressive containment coverage, specialized modification allowing limited functionality despite conditions that would immobilize standard human physiology. Artificial adaptation to extreme temperature conditions, Naruto observed, studying the captured operative with professional assessment. Specialized modifications designed specifically for countering ice-based techniques. The operative's appearance confirmed advanced modification beyond previous Orochi units they had encountered. Humanoid but extensively altered, with specialized components NTE graded throughout biological systems to create hybrid entity balanced between organic and mechanical functionalities. Most notable were the sensory apparatuses, specialized systems designed for thermal signature tracking beyond standard visual acquisition. Fourth generation design based on configuration indicators, Keita noted, maintaining safe distance while studying the partially immobilized operative. Significant advancement beyond the units we encountered during the border engagement. The assessment matched Naruto's own analysis. This represented evolutionary development in Orochi's modification methodology, incorporating lessons from previous encounter outcomes to create more specialized countermeasure capabilities. The targeting system in particular showed sophisticated adaptation specifically calibrated for tracking bloodline energy signatures through environmental interference patterns. What was your targeting objective? Naruto questioned directly, maintaining the containment technique while approaching optimal interrogation position. The operative remained silent, internal systems visibly attempting to re-establish full functionality despite the containment constraints. Its sensory apparatus continued tracking Naruto's position with mechanical precision despite mobility limitations, dedicated functionality maintaining operational parameters despite overall system compromise. Communication blackout protocols engaging, Keita warned, specialized senses detecting energy fluctuations within the operative's central systems. Self-destruction sequence potentia, LLY initiating based on previous unit behavioral patterns. Naruto adjusted his containment technique in response, ice formations reconfiguring to focus suppression effect around critical system junk. Churish identified through previous encounter analysis. The modification interrupted developing energy cascade before destructive sequence could complete initialization. Preservation prioritized over immediate intelligence extraction. Specialized transport containment required for detailed examination, he concluded, recognizing limitations regarding field interrogation given the unit's sophisticated countermeasure systems. Preservation protocols indicate value beyond standard operational deployment. Agreed, Keita confirmed, already establishing perimeter security to ensure no secondary systems could interfere with the capture. This represents significant intelligence opportunity regarding Orochi's current technological development. Before they could initiate extraction preparations, new variable entered operational environment, chakra signature approaching their position with deliberate intent rather than casual proximity. The signature registered as controlled but substantial, suggesting trained combatant rather than civilian witness. Single approach, northwestern vector, Naruto reported, maintaining primary focus on containment technique while extending sensory awareness toward the new development. Chakra signature indicating specialized training methodology consistent with Snow Country Military Division. Not standard patrol pattern, Keita noted, positioning RSELF to maintain optimal coverage against potential threat while Naruto continued managing the containment system. Deliberate approach following our specific movement route rather than established security pathway. The observation suggested targeted response rather than coincidental encounter. Someone had tracked their departure from the diplomatic event and followed with specific intent. The A.P.P. Roach methodology indicated professional training beyond standard security personnel, though stopping short of hostile advance parameters that would suggest immediate attack intention. Miyuki Kazuhana, Naruto identified as the signature came within definitive recognition range, moving independently rather than with security detail. The development created complex tactical considerations, diplomatic complication potential alongside possible assistance opportunity depending on her actual objectives regarding their unauthorized operation. The decision regarding appropriate response balance. Multiple competing priorities including mission security, diplomatic implications, and practical intelligence requirements. Maintain containment priority while I establish communication, Naruto directed. Practical division of responsibilities based on their respective positions and capabilities. Keita acknowledged with professional efficiency, maintaining security focus while he addressed the new development. Miyuki approached the structure's modified entrance with cautious precision, movement demonstrating military training beneath diplomatic presentation. Her chakra control maintained impressive discipline despite the tense circumstances, signature regulated to minimal detection profile while preserving rapid deployment capability if required. Specialized assessment successfully identified anomalous energy manifestation, she noted upon entering, taking in the contained operative and surrounding ice formations with analytical efficiency rather than surprise. Though standard notification protocols appear to have been overlooked during response implementation, the mild rebuke carried diplomatic precision rather than genuine criticism, observation of procedural oversight alongside tacit acknowledgement of operational necessity. Her focus quickly transitioned to professional assessment regarding the captured operative, examining the specialized modifications with evident recognition despite their advanced configuration. Fourth-generation integration model, she identified, confirming their earlier assessment. Specialized targeting system designed specifically for Bloodline signature acquisition rather than standard combat functionality. The technical familiarity suggested knowledge beyond standard military briefings, specialized information regarding Orochi's research methodologies indicating either intelligence division connection or independent information gathering beyond official channels. Either possibility carried significant implications regarding her actual role beyond publicly acknowledged positions. Its targeting sequence focused specifically on your bloodline signature during the demonstration, she continued, connecting tactical assessment to broader strategic implications. The specialized sensory system incorporates calibration parameters matching historical Yukimura energy patterns with remarkable precision, suggesting specific preparation beyond general bloodline targeting capability. Naruto concluded, integrating this observation with previous intelligence regarding Orochi's operations. The system was designed specifically for tracking snow fox manifestations rather than general genetic abilities, which confirms prioritization hypotheses regarding his current research objectives. Miyuki noted, professional analyse is matching their own conclusions despite her separate information foundation. The Yukimura bloodline represents specific value beyond general collection parameters, likely connected to integrated application potential rather than isolated capability reproduction. The assessment demonstrated sophisticated understanding regarding both bloodline mechanics and research methodology, knowledge exceeding standard political or military briefing information. Miyuki's perspective incorporated technical comprehension alongside strategic analysis, suggesting specialized background beyond her publicly acknowledged experiences. This operative requires secure containment for detailed examination beyond field assessment capabilities, she observed, practical consideration overriding jurisdictional questions that might otherwise dominate such scenarios. Fortunately, appropriate facilities exist outside standard military research division parameters. The statement contained significant implications regarding her access to specialized resources operating independently from official power structures, capabilities suggesting either aristocratic privilege or separate organizational affiliation beyond public acknowledgement. Independent research division maintaining appropriate ethical parameters while preserving technical capabilities, she elaborated, correctly interpreting their questioning expressions. Established following the purges to preserve certain knowledge frameworks deemed historically significant despite political complications regarding their origins. The explanation revealed complex historical context underlying current political landscape, institutional preservation of knowledge despite official suppression of its sources. The arrangement suggested sophisticated cultural adaptation to political realities rather than simple historical erasure, preserving valuable information despite complicated origins. Secure transport with appropriate containment parameters C and be arranged without requiring official authorization pathways, Miyuki continued, shifting from explanation to practical planning with efficient transition. Creating opportunity for detailed examination without generating diplomatic complications regarding acquisition circumstances. The offer balanced multiple competing priorities, practical intelligence requirements alongside diplomatic considerations and security protocols. The unofficial pathway created operational flexibility without compromising fundamental mission objectives, though accepting such assistance carried implicit relatio ship establishment beyond simple tactical cooperation. Naruto exchanged brief glance with Keita, silent communication establishing mutual assessment regarding the proposal. Their professional experience provided framework for evaluating both potential benefits and complications, weighing immediate tactical advantages against longer-term strategic considerations. Acceptable approach provided AP. Appropriate operational security maintains throughout transfer process, Naruto decided, balancing authorization parameters against practical necessity. The potential intelligence value justified procedural flexibility, particularly given the specialized nature of the captured operative. Miyuki acknowledged with professional efficiency, immediately initiating necessary arrangements through secure C. Communication device concealed within her formal attire. The specialized equipment confirmed sophisticated operational capability beyond standard diplomatic resources, technology indicating connection to intelligence functions rather than simple political position. As Miyuki coordinated secure transport, Naruto maintained the containment technique while considering broader implications regarding this development. The captured operative represented significant intelligence opportunity regarding Orochi's current capabilities, but Miyuki's involvement carried equal importance regarding Snow Counter. Wise internal political dynamics and potential alliance opportunities. Her willingness to establish unofficial cooperation outside formal channels suggested potential alignment regarding fundamental objectives despite complex political context. Practical alliance based on shared opposition to Orochi's operations rather than formal diplomatic frameworks. Such arrangement offered operational flexibility while maintaining appropriate separation from official policy positions that might otherwise restrict effective response capabilities. Transport team approaching from secure facility approximately 3 kilometers southeast. Miyuki reported upon completing communications. Specialized containment vehicle with appropriate suppression systems for safe transportation without compromising examination potential. Timeline aligns with necessary diplomatic re-engagement requirements, Naruto noted, calculating remaining window before his shadow clone's absence would become problematic within formal proceedings. Though explanation regarding our absence requires appropriate formulation, already established through administrative channels, Miyuki assured him. Diplomatic experience evident in her proactive problem-solving. Specialized consultation regarding environmental regulation systems creates plausible explanation for temporary separation from primary diplomatic activities. He efficient solution demonstrated both practical intelligence and diplomatic experience, creating functional coverage without requiring elaborate deception frameworks. Naruto found himself appreciating her operational competence alongside earlier displayed political acumen, comprehensive capability set rather than specialized excellence in limited domain. The capture likely triggered automated notification through failsafe systems. Keita noted, returning focus to tactical considerations. Orochi's command structure would establish response protocols once communication blackout registered beyond standard parameters. Creating potential operational security concerns regarding subsequent activities, Naruto acknowledged, connecting immediate tactical situation to broader strategic landscape. Particularly concerning diplomatic function scheduled for this evening, which requires appropriate adjustment regarding security parameters, Miyuki agreed, seamlessly integrating into their tactical assessment despite different organizational background. Fortunately, alternative venue options exist outside standard procedural frameworks. The statement contained multiple layers, acknowledgement of security concerns, proposal regarding alternative approaches, and subtle indication of resources beyond official channels. The comprehensive response demonstrated both practical capability and willingness to establish cooperative framework despite complex political context. Transport arrangements proceeded with impressive efficiency given the improvised nature of their operation. Miyuki's coordination demonstrated access to specialized resources operating outside standard governmental hierarchies, capabilities suggesting separate power structure maintained through historical aristocracy. Added connections rather than official positional authority. The transport team arrived with professional precision, specialized personnel operating with evident experience regarding unusual containment requirements. Their equipment incorporated advanced technology alongside traditional methodologies, creating effective hybrid approach balancing innovation with established functionality. Transfer proceeded smoothly, Naruto's containment technique gradually transitioning to specialized systems incorporated within the transport vehicle. The process required careful coordination to prevent T of the operatives' defensive protocols during transitional vulnerability, precision teamwork despite their varied organizational backgrounds. Examination results will be made available through ECU RE channels once initial analysis completes, Miyuki assured them as the transport prepared for departure. Creating valuable intelligence foundation regarding both technological capabilities and strategic objectives. While maintaining appropriate separation from official diplomatic channels, Naruto noted, appreciating the careful balance between practical cooperation and political considerations. Precisely, Miyuki confirmed, brief smile acknowledging the sophisticated understanding underlying his observation. Operational flexibility sometimes requires institutional separation despite aligned fundamental objectives. The transport departed with minimal visibility, route carefully selected to avoid standard observation positions throughout the capital region. Miyuki's coordinatee had demonstrated intimate familiarity with security parameters beyond public knowledge, information suggesting either intelligence division connection or separate information gathering capabilities. Operating independently from official channels. We should return to diplomatic functions before absence generates unintended attention, she suggested, practical consideration redirecting focus Tawa. Road immediate requirements despite the significant developments. Though perhaps opportunity exists for more substantive discussion during tonight's cultural exhibition. The proposal balanced immediate procedural requirements against longer-term intelligence objectives, maintaining appropriate diplomatic coverage while establishing framework for subsequent information exchange beyond ceremonial limitations. The approach demonstrated sophisticated operational thinking alongside political acumen. The Snow Temple Cultural Exhibition would provide appropriate context for historical discussion beyond standard diplomatic parameters. She elaborated, referring to scheduled evening function focused on cultural heritage demonstration rather than formal political engagement. Particularly given RTAIN architectural elements incorporating specialized historical significance regarding your unique heritage. The carefully phrased suggestion contained significant implication beneath diplomatic indication that the cultural exhibition included material specifically relevant to the Yukimura bloodline despite official historical suppression regarding their existence. The information read both intellectual and practical value regarding his developing abilities and their historical context. Historical perspective provides valuable foundation for appropriate understanding regarding recent developments. Naruto acknowledged, accepting the implicit invitation while maintaining appropriate diplomatic phrasing. Cultural context often illuminates technical applications beyond isolated capability assessment. Miyuki's eyes reflected appreciation for his balanced response, recognition of both intellectual interest and practical application potential without overemphasizing either aspect. The exchange demonstrated developing rapport beyond simple diplomatic courtesy, establishing mutual recognition regarding sophisticated understanding despite their different backgrounds. As they prepared to return toward the diplomatic functions, Keita positioned herself slightly apart, professional courtesy creating privacy opportunity despite maintained security awareness. The gesture demonstrated both tactical discipline and interpersonal awareness, balancing operational requirements against social considerations. The Snow Temple contains historical records regarding both Yukimura and Ryu bloodlines. Miyuki noted, including Keita within the conversation despite her attempted discretion. Including technical documentation regarding cooperative methodology development during historical periods preceding the territorial conflicts. The information carried significant implication for both of them, potential access to historical knowledge regarding their respective bloodlines beyond current understanding, including cooperative techniques predating modern political divisions. The value extended beyond simple historical interest to practical application potential regarding their developing capabilities. Cooperative methodology would provide valuable foundation for technique development beyond individual specialization, Keita acknowledged, professional interest overriding previous reticence. Particularly given demonstrated effectiveness during recent engagement despite minimal coordinated training. Historical precedent often reveals potential ways not immediately apparent through independent development, Miyuki agreed, inclusive conversation establishing functional three-way exchange despite their varied backgrounds and objectives. The Temple archives preserve technical documentation otherwise lost during political reorganization periods. The information exchange continued as they returned toward the diplomatic center, establishing substantive discussion foundation despite the necessary return to formal functions. Their conversation balanced professional analysis with practical planning, creating functional cooperation framework despite organizational separation. Naruto found himself appreciating both women's operational competence alongside their distinct perspectives regarding the developing situation. Kata's focused intensity complemented Miyuki's sophisticated political awareness, creating comprehensive analytical foundation despite their different backgrounds and approaches. Rejoining the diplomatic proceedings required minimal explanation given Miyuki's proactive arrangement of administrative coverage. His shadow clone dispelled upon his return, transferring accumulated information regarding the formal proceedings he had missed during their improvised operation. The seamless transition maintained appropriate diplomatic presence while preserving operational security regarding their unauthorized activities. The afternoon continued through scheduled diplomatic functions according to previously established parameters. Naruto participated with appropriate engagement while maintaining enhanced awareness regarding surrounding security conditions, particularly given the confirmed Orochi presence within the capital region. The captured operative's sophisticated targeting capabilities suggested potential additional assets operating within similar parameters throughout the area. As formal functions transitioned toward evening activities, Miyuki approached their position with practiced diplomatic casual manner masking purposeful engagement. Transportation arrangements to the cultural exhibition have been modified to incorporate specialized security parameters given earlier developments, she informed them. Voice pitched for privacy despite public surroundings, creating opportunity for more substantive discussion regarding historical context relevant to recent activations. The carefully PHRASED statement balanced multiple communication objectives, practical security information alongside intellectual engagement opportunity and subtle alliance development. The linguistic efficiency demons traded sophisticated communication skills beyond simple diplomatic training. Historical perspective provides essential foundation for appropriate technical development, Naruto acknowledged, accepting the implicit invitation while maintaining appropriate public presentation, particularly regarding specialized applications beyond standard capability parameters. Their exchange established mutual understanding regarding evening arrangements without requiring explicit confirmation that might generate unwanted attention from surrounding observers. The diplomatic precision demonstrated developing rapport despite their relatively brief acquaintance, professional respect creating efficient communication pathways despite complex political context. As daylight faded across Snow Country's capital region, artificial illumination systems activated throughout architectural elements, specialized technology creating practical lighting alongside aesthetic effect. The transition highlighted the fundamental pragmatism underlying northern development, functional requirements addressed through systematic solutions that incorporated beauty as secondary consideration rather than primary objective. Evening cultural exhibition would provide opportunity beyond standard diplomatic functions, specialized historical context regarding the Yukimura bloodline alongside potential technical information are relevant to Naruto's developing abilities. Whatever information awaited within the Snow Temple archives, the opportunity represented significant intelligence value beyond immediate political considerations. Frost patterns manifested briefly beneath his skin as Naruto contemplated these developments, crystalline structures forming along his forearms before conscious control suppressed the visible manifestation. His bloodline abilities continued developing through daily practice, though formal technique refinement remained limited by knowledge constraints regarding the Yukimura methodologies. Snow Temple archives potentially offered solution to this fundamental limitation. Historical documentation regarding proper application approaches beyond the basic instinctive understanding that had developed since activation. The technical knowledge preserved within aristocratic institutional memory might provide essential foundation for appropriate development beyond simple capability utilization. As diplomatic functions concluded their afternoon schedule, preparation for evening transportation commenced according to established protocols. Naruto maintained appropriate engagement with official proceedings while developing mental preparation for the upcoming opportunity, balancing diplomatic requirements against intelligence objectives within complex political environment where multiple factions pursued competing agendas beneath ceremonial cooperation. The Snow Fox bloodline had awakened from historical dormancy into active engagement with contemporary landscape. Whatever consequences followed from this re-emergence, the fundamental progression continued through inexorable development, patient power flowing through natural pathways toward inevitable conclusion beyond current understanding or control. Black small square, black small square, black small square. Snow Temple rose from mountainside plateau overlooking Umegakur's central district, ancient stone structure incorporating architectural elements predating modern construction methodologies. Unlike surrounding buildings designed primarily for practical functionality, the temple embodied historical preservation priorities alongside ceremonial requirements, physical manifestation of cultural continuity despite political evolution throughout northern territories. Crystalline formations extended from the temple's upper levels, capturing ambient light to create natural illumination system that required no external energy source. The specialized material demonstrated advanced application of principles Naruto recognized from his developing bloodline abilities, molecular organization transcending standard frozen water properties to create permanent structures with unique optical characteristics. The crystal configurations were created during the Second Northern Unification period, Miyuki explained as their transport approached the temple complex. Yukimura technique specialists working in cooperation with early architectural development programs before standardized construction methodologies replaced individualized approach requirements. The historical context provided valuable perspective regarding practical applications beyond combat-oriented capabilities, bloodline abilities contributing to infrastructure development rather than simply providing military advantage. This broader functionality explained the comprehensive preservation efforts regarding technical knowledge despite political complications surrounding the Yukimura clan's eventual suppression. Their transport halted at designated arrival position, specialized security team Estabilis. Hing appropriate perimeter before diplomatic attendees disembarked. The evening function combined cultural exhibition with less formal diplomatic engagement, educational presentation regarding northern historical development alongside social interaction opportunity beyond ceremonial limitations. The temple maintains independent operational status despite theoretical governmental oversight, I continued as they proceeded through ancient stone archways marking the complex's entrance. Historical preservation mandates established following the unification period created institutional sapara Chion protecting cultural artifacts from political interference during subsequent reorganization phases. The arrangement demonstrated sophisticated adaptation to political realities, preservation framework established during stable period creating protective institutional structure that survived subsequent upheavals. The approach prioritized knowledge continuity despite leadership transitions, ensuring cultural foundation remained intact regardless of political superstructure evolution. Inside, the temple's main chamber extended upward through multiple levels connected by specialized ice formations serving both structural and aesthetic functions. Unlike standard frozen water, these constructions displayed perfect crystalline organization, molecular alignment creating transparent structures with extraordinary strength characteristics despite apparent delicacy. Permanent ice formations created through specialized Yukimura techniques, Miyuki identified, noting Naruto's interest in the structural elements. The molecular organization process establishes stable configuration resistant to standard thermal degradation, creating effectively permanent structures despite theoretical phase change vulnerability. The technical explanation aligned with Naruto's developing understanding of his own abilities, manipulation of molecular organization rather than simple temperature reduction. The difference represented fundamental distinction between true bloodline capability and standard elemental techniques attempting to reproduce similar effects through less sophisticated approaches. Throughout the chamber, cultural artifacts displayed with careful preservation protocols demonstrated northern historical development across multiple periods. The exhibition focused on technological innovation rather than political evolution, practical developments enabling survival within extreme environmental conditions rather than leadership transitions dominating standard historical narratives. The attendees comprised select representatives from both diplomatic delegation and Snow Country's leadership structure, limited gathering rather than comprehensive inclusion, suggesting specialized focus beyond standard cultural presentation. The composition favored aristocratic representatives over military leadership, indicating subtle political statement regarding institutional priorities despite recent jurisdictional realignments. The exhibition's central focus incorporates specialized historical perspective regarding Northern Bloodline contributions to regional development, Miyuki Expo, aimed as they moved through the chamber toward restricted section separated from main exhibition area. Particularly technological applications beyond combat-oriented capabilities that formed Foundati on for subsequent infrastructure systems throughout territorial expansion periods. The information framed subsequent presentation within broader historical context, Bloodline abilities as development catalysts rather than simply military advantages. This perspective provided comprehensive understanding regarding their cultural significance beyond immediate security applications, explaining institutional preservation despite political complications surrounding their originators. Chancellor Kazuhana approached their position as they reached the restricted section entrance, formal diplomatic demeanor softening slightly within the cultural setting. The temple archives contain our most comprehensive historical documentation regarding specialized developmental methodologies, he explained. Genuine academic interest evident beneath political presentation, including technical applications that formed foundation for many systems still operating throughout northern territories. The statement contained both historical acknowledgement and practical implication, recognition of bloodline contributions alongside indication regarding continued relevance beyond historical appreciation. The Chancellor's involvement demonstrated institutional interest transcending immediate political considerations, suggesting fundamental alignment regarding knowledge preservation despite factional competition in other domains. Recent activations create renewed interest regarding historical documentation beyond standard academic consideration, he continued, careful phrasing acknowledging current circumstances without explicit reference to Naruto's bloodline situation. Particularly technical methodology records preserved through specialized preservation protocols during transitional periods. Diplomatic circumlocution masked straightforward meaning. The archives contained information specifically relevant to the Yukimura techniques that had recently manifested through Naruto's bloodline activation. The Chancellor's willingness to acknowledge this connection, however indirectly, suggested potential alignment regarding information sharing beyond official positional requirements. Historical perspective provides essential foundation for appropriate contextual understanding, Naruto responded, matching the Chancellor's diplomatic precision while conveying genuine interest regarding the information. Technical methodology often benefits from comprehensive developmental context rather than isolated application parameters. Their exchange established mutual acknowledgement regarding both historical significance and practical application potential without requiring explicit statements that might create diplomatic complications. The sophisticated communication demonstrated professional respect transcending organizational differences despite complex political context. The restricted section entrance incorporated specialized security systems beyond standard preservation protocols. Chakra-based authentication mechanisms requiring specific authorization before permitting access. Chancellor Kazuhana performed necessary verification procedures with practiced efficiency, security clearance apparently unaffected by recent political realignments diminishing his authority in other domains. Beyond the security threshold, environmental conditions shifted noticeably, temperature decreasing significantly while humidity reduced to precisely controlled levels optimal for ancient document preservation. The specialized climate control system demonstrated technological application of principles similar to Naruto's bloodline abilities, molecular-level environmental manipulation rather than simple temperature adjustment. The preservation system incorporates modified Yukimura Tekken IQs adapted for institutional application rather than individual implementation, Miyuki explained, noting his interest in the environmental systems. Technical foundation established before standardized methodologies replaced specialized applications during subsequent development periods. The central chamber beyond contained comprehensive archive system organized according to specialized classification methodology rather than standard chronological approach. Display cases incorporating advanced preservation technology contained ancient scrolls and artifacts dating from Northern Territory's earliest developmental periods through subsequent historical phases. The technical documentation regarding specialized methodologies occupies separate preservation framework given both historical Significance and practical application potential, Chancellor Kazahana explained, leading them toward specific sections separated from general historical materials. The classification system priority, Z's technical detail over chronological organization, creating functional reference framework beyond simple historical documentation. The approach demonstrated practical priority over academic trading. Tian, information organized for potential application rather than simply historical appreciation. The methodology reflected Northern cultural emphasis on functional utility over theoretical elegance, pragmatic solution to knowledge preservation requirements rather than purely academic consideration. The specialized section contained technical documentation specifically focused on bloodline methodologies, comprehensive collection including both theoretical foundation materials and practical application guidelines. Most significant were the technique scrolls preserved through specialized containment systems, ancient documents recording specific methodology details regarding proper implementation approaches beyond general capability descriptions. The Ukamura technique documentation occupies central position within preservation hierarchy due to fundamental application principles underlying multiple subsequent developments, Chancellor Kazahana noted, indicating specific section containing scrolls featuring distinctive crystalline markings along their containers. The molecular organization methodologies provided foundation for numerous technological applications beyond direct bloodline implementation. The collection represented comprehensive knowledge repository regarding the Snow Fox abilities, historical documentation preserved despite political complications surrounding the Ukamura clan's eventual suppression. The preservation demonstrated institutional recognition regarding technical value transcending political considerations, practical importance acknowledged despite complicated historical context. Including cooperative methodology development during periods preceding territorial conflicts, Miyuki added, directing attention toward separate section containing documentation featuring dual marking systems, particularly regarding complementary implementation approaches between opposing elemental specializations. This section drew Keita's attention given obvious relevance to her own abilities. Technical documentation regarding historical cooperation between Ukamura and Ryu bloodlines before political divisions created opposition between their respective clans. The information held particular value given their demonstrated combat synergy during recent engagement despite minimal coordinated training. The archives preserve comprehensive technical detail. Beyond general historical understanding, Chancellor Kazahana explained, evident pride regarding the preservation achievement despite complicated political implications. Creating potential applicati on foundation through historical methodology recovery rather than requiring contemporary redevelopment through trial-based experimentation. The statement contained significant practical implication. Beneath historical appreciation, the archives offered technical knowledge that could accelerate Naruto's bloodline development beyond current limitations imposed by information constraints. The documentation provided specific methodology guidance rather than requiring rediscovery through independent experimentation, potentially compressing development timeline from years to months or even weeks. Quote, historical foundation provides essential context for appropriate development beyond basic capability utilization, Naruto acknowledged, genuine appreciation underlying diplomatic courtesy. Technical methodology benefits substantially from established implementation framework rather than requiring fundamental rediscovery through isolated experimentation. The Chancellor nodded with academic satisfaction transcending political calculation. The preservation programs established following unification periods prioritized comprehensive knowledge conservation despite subsequent political complications. Technical value transcended immediate political considerations, creating institutional mandate focused on practical application potential rather than simplified historical narrative requirements. As Naruto examined the specialized preservation systems containing technique documentation, enhanced perception registered subtle energy signatures emanating from specific scrolls, resonance patterns suggesting connection with his awakened bloodline abilities despite the material's ancient origins. The phenomenon indicated fundamental relationship transcending temporal separation, genetic connection with methodologies developed generations earlier through shared bloodline heritage. The primary technique documentation incorporates specialized preservation methodology beyond standard conservation approaches, Miyuki noted. Observing his reaction to the energy resonance creating potential interactive functionality rather than simply preserving historical record through static maintenance. The distinction carried significant practical implication. The scrolls contained active methodology components rather than simply historical descriptions, potentially allowing direct knowledge NSFER beyond standard learning approaches. The specialized preservation created functional teaching system rather than simply historical documentation, sophisticated knowledge transfer methodology rather than mere information storage. Interactive functionality facilitates accelerated assimilation beyond standard learning parameters, Chancellor Kazahana confirmed, academic enthusiasm momentarily overriding diplomatic reserve. The methodology incorporates specialized resonance systems designed specifically for genetic compatibility verification before access authorization. The security TEM provided practical protection alongside preservation functionality, ensuring bloodline techniques remained accessible only to legitimate genetic carriers rather than becoming available to anyone with physical access to the documentation. The sophisticated approach demonstrated ancient understanding regarding both knowledge preservation and appropriate security requirements surrounding specialized abilities. Creating effective knowledge continuity despite potential generational separation between practitioners, Naruto observed, connecting implications regarding the preservation methodology. Ensuring technique refinement accumulation remained available despite potential dormancy periods within bloodline expression continuity. Chancellor Kazahana's expression reflected genuine pleasure regarding this sophisticated understanding, academic appreciation transcending political calculation. Precisely. The preservation system established functional knowledge transfer mechanism operating independently from standard educational continuity, ensuring technical development remained accessible despite potential interruption regarding living practitioner availability. The conversation continued through detailed examination of the preserved technique documentation, establishing comprehensive understanding regarding both historical context and practical application potential. The Chancellor displayed impressive technical knowledge despite his primarily administrative position, suggesting either specialized academic background or personal interest transcending official responsibilities. As they proceeded through the archived materials, Naruto detected subtle security alert propagating through the temple's protection systems, not emergency activation but heightened awareness protocol suggesting potential concern rather than immediate threat. The energy fluctuation registered against his enhanced perception despite minimal external indication, environmental systems responding to some development beyond standard parameters. Miyuki tensed slightly beside him, having apparently detected similar notification through some specialized awareness despite lacking his enhanced sensory capabilities. Her reaction suggested either trained sensitivity or prior familiarity with the temple's security systems beyond standard visitor understanding. Environmental adjustment protocol activating in Eastern Perimeter section, she noted quietly, confirming his impression regarding security alert despite maintaining casual demeanor for surrounding attendees. Suggesting potential Mawe detection rather than scheduled system maintenance. The observation demonstrated both situational awareness and technical familiarity, recognition of subtle system indicators alongside contextual understanding regarding their significance. Chancellor Kazahana similarly registered the development despite no obvious external notification, attention shifting momentarily from historical documentation to broader environmental awareness. Perimeter monitoring systems occasionally register anomalous energy signatures requiring verification protocols, he explained, diplomatic phrasing masking what appeared to be genuine security consideration beneath casual dismissal. Standard procedure rather than specific concern indicator. The careful balance between acknowledgement and minimization Augusted professional security awareness masked by diplomatic necessity, recognition of potential situation developing alongside appropriate public composure maintenance. The Chancellor's composed response despite evident concern indicated extensive experience regarding security management within diplomatic context. Perhaps opportunity to examine specialized environmental regulation systems might provide valuable technical perspective alongside historical documentation, Miyuki suggested, creating plausible explanation for potential investigative response without explicitly acknowledging security concerns. Particularly regarding practical application methodology beyond theoretical foundation materials. The proposal established potential framework for addressing the developing situation. without creating diplomatic complications through explicit security response acknowledgement. Chancellor Kazuhana considered briefly before nodding agreement, apparently recognizing the balanced approach this created regarding both security requirements and diplomatic considerations. The Environmental Regulations Center incorporates specialized implementation examples regarding principles documented within the technical archives. He confirmed, supporting the narrative framework while establishing appropriate authorization for their movement toward potential security concern area. Creating comprehensive understanding through practical demonstration alongside theoretical documentation. The exchange demonstrated sophisticated coordination despite lacking explicit communication regarding actual objectives, professional understanding transcending organizational differences to address potential security situation without compromising diplomatic parameters. Naruto found himself appreciating the efficient response despite the concerning development interrupting their valuable historical research opportunity. They proceeded toward the eastern section with appropriate casualness despite underlying purpose shift. Maintaining plausible educational objective narrative while transitioning toward security investigation parameters. Chancellor Kazuhana coordinated with temple security personnel through subtle communication methods that would appear as standard administrative interaction to casual observers despite conveying specific tactical information. The eastern section incorporates primary environmental regulation systems controlling both preservation parameters and general climate conditions throughout the complex, Miyuki explained as they moved through connecting corridors. Maintaining educational pretense despite clear security focus, including specialized sensor networks monitoring atmospheric composition alongside standard temperature regulation mechanisms. The explanation provided both plausible cover narrative and actual tactical information. The environmental systems included comprehensive monitoring capabilities beyond simple climate control functionality. This infrastructure created potential information gathering opportunity regarding whatever anomaly had triggered security protocols without requiring obvious investigation activities. As they approached the eastern section, Naruto's enhanced perception detected specific energy signature generating the security alert, chakra pattern displaying artificial modification characteristics similar to O's observed in Orochi's specialized units, though utilizing different concealment methodology than the observer they had captured earlier. The signature suggested infiltration specialist rather than combat unit, reconnaissance focused on information gathering rather than direct engagement capability. Specialized observer using advanced concealment methodology, he reported quietly, sharing tactical assessment while maintaining casual movement pattern to avoid alerting the potential infiltrator. Signature configuration suggests information gathering priority rather than combat deployment parameters. Keita confirmed this assessment through her own specialized senses, ambient temperature around her position rising slightly as she prepared potential response capabilities despite maintaining diplomatic presentation. Thermal camouflage system incorporating localized environmental manipulation rather than simple visual concealment, advanced methodology beyond standard infiltration approaches. The technical analysis aligned with Naruto's own observations, sophisticated concealment technology utilizing principles similar to his own thermal camouflage technique though implemented through artificial systems rather than natural ability. The methodology demonstrated significant advancement in Orochi's technology since their previous encounters, incorporating lessons from earlier opera outcomes to develop more effective infiltration capabilities. The temple's security systems incorporate specialized detection parameters beyond standard sensor technology, Miyuki noted, prophase. Sional assessment replacing diplomatic courtesy as situation parameters shifted toward security focus. Particularly regarding environmental manipulation techniques that might otherwise bypass conventional monitoring approaches. The information explained how the infiltration had been detected despite advanced concealment methodology. Specialized systems designed specifically for identifying environmental manipulation techniques rather than relying on standard visual or chakra detection methods. The security approach demonstrated sophisticated countermeasure development specifically oriented toward bloodline-based concealment capabilities or their technological equivalents. Preservation protocols require specialized response methodology rather than standard security intervention, Chancellor Kazuhana stated. Diplomatic phrasing masking straightforward tactical directive. particularly regarding potential environmental disruption concerns affecting archived materials. The statement contained clear operational authorization despite careful linguistic construction, approval for specialized response utilizing their unique capabilities rather than standard security personnel intervention that might create greater disruption through conventional approaches. The Chancellor's willingness to authorize such independent action demonstrated both practical assessment regarding their specialized capabilities and trust transcending organizational differences despite limited acquaintance. Naruto exchanged brief glance with Keita, silent communication establishing response coordination, without requiring verbal planning that might alert the infiltrator to their awareness. Their previous cooperation provided functional foundation for coordinated action despite minimal formal training. Together, professional understanding transcending organizational separation to address immediate tactical requirements. Environmental stabilization through complementary application methodology, Naruto suggested. Establishing technical approach utilizing their opposing elemental specializations to create comprehensive containment system rather than simple neutralization attempt. Preservation priority alongside information acquisition objectives. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.